harmed in the making of this program.
However, we did injure a receptionist and a technician. Sorry.
Today's News Talk, The Pulse.
Oh, well, I had an absolutely wonderful time in Sydney and Canberra. I think we've had some pretty big impact, and the Wimmera Mallee Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association certainly will be remembered from Canberra. Absolutely fantastic. Stayed in Jerilderie overnight last night, and I think we absolutely should all remember the people that fought for our freedom, for our independence, for our rule of law, and these things are important aspects to Australian life. Food security is national security. We absolutely must do better in terms of providing food security. The ABARES is predicting a decline in food security, 47% shortage in pork, 40% shortage in butter, 15% shortage in apples. We absolutely must do better for agriculture. It's an important endeavour in Australia. The other thing I guess I thought I would talk about is we've seen several road working gangs working up along the road from Sydney to Canberra and in around Sydney. There was 3 or 4 very attractive traffic management girls on the stop-go signs. What's happened in Victoria is spreading across the country. This is lack of productivity. There is no outputs for a lot more inputs. This has been run by the Albanese government. We must have productivity growth in Australia. This is an extremely important thing. If we don't have productivity growth, everyone, the country, the nation, the individuals will have less and less choice. Sure, it's fine for the people that are getting 150, 200,000 holding the lollipop sign. No worries, they got a free ticket and an easy life. But the problem is that everyone else pays the price. We must have productivity, we must drive in productivity, we must encourage productivity, and productivity is not happening in the energy sector. We're putting more and more capital in for less and less outputs out. Productivity, and we must get back to a country that can grow our productivity at 3, 4, 5%. Where we are right now is oblivion for the nation. And it's been run by the loony left, and the loony left wants money for nothing. The only place you can get money for nothing is on the system in Australia. This is crazy. Otherwise, small businesses, farmers, everyone have to work hard. Thank you very much. It's Ross Johns here from the Centurion Tank in Jerilderie. Enjoy your day.
Hello, Sarah from the Bureau here with your national weather forecast for tomorrow. So that's Friday, the 21st of August. So we'll start off by taking a look at tomorrow's weather map. We've got that lingering cloud band extending from the west all the way into the east, with the potential for 10 to 20 millimetres or so about northern inland parts of New South Wales and southwestern parts of Queensland, with showery conditions also continuing throughout the far southeast in those westerly winds. Then out in the southwest, a chilly start with morning fog and frost patches. So let's go around the country now, taking a closer look state by state, starting with Queensland. In the southwest, we're expecting cloudy conditions with these scattered showers, rain areas and possible thunderstorms that will gradually move eastwards throughout the day. Elsewhere, dry and sunny conditions with just a few very light showers about the exposed east coast, but tending more scattered about the Cassowary coast. Maximum temperatures mostly in the mid-20s, but grading up to the low 30s as we head up towards the northern tropics. Much cooler under that cloud band with mid-teens expected. For Brisbane, morning fog patches are possible through western areas, then a mostly sunny day, a top of 23 degrees. Moving on to New South Wales, that cloud band will bring those scattered showers, rain areas and possible storms throughout northern and central inland areas, with those showers tending more isolated east of the Divide, remaining dry about the far northeast and the southwest with possible snow showers for alpine areas. For Sydney, a possible early morning shower, then a sunny afternoon, a top of 23 degrees. For Canberra, also a slight chance of an early morning shower, clearing to a mostly sunny afternoon and a top of 17. Moving on to Victoria, it will be a cool day with scattered showers about the northeast ranges and as well about the southwest coast. Isolated showers pretty much elsewhere, but generally near and south of the Great Dividing Range. For Melbourne, morning fog patches are possible, then the chance of a shower, a top of 16. Moving on to Tasmania, scattered showers throughout western areas, tending more isolated elsewhere. Daytime temperatures expected to be in the mid-teens for Hobart, a cloudy day with showers and a top of 15. Moving on to South Australia, morning fog patches are possible throughout the southwest, while morning frost patches are possible about the Flinders district. Isolated light showers about the agricultural areas, mostly about the windward slopes and coasts, while the scattered showers and rain areas across the north will ease during the evening. For Adelaide, a partly cloudy day with a shower or two and a top of 16. Moving on to WA, we've got those scattered showers, rain areas and possible storms extending from the southern Pilbara into the interior. But for the southwest land division, a really chilly start with morning fog and frost patches throughout inland areas and just a slight chance of a light shower about that far south coast. For Perth, possible morning fog patches about the hills and a sunny afternoon, a top of 23. Moving on to the Territory, we've got these scattered showers and possible storms throughout the far south. Also a risk of a light shower about the coastal areas of the top end. For Darwin, a slight chance of an early morning shower, then a sunny day, a top of 33. So if you're after a more detailed forecast for your local area, you can head to the Bureau's website, app or social media. Otherwise, we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.
You're with Mike Ryan on today's News Talk, The Pulse.
Shock, it works. Apologies as my voice breaks. Apologies for as my ears pop, for the slight interruption to programming. The company we use we pay, by the way, to look after us. They were hacked. And they were hacked in such a way they deleted not just ours, but everybody's data, which is a bit of a pity because it makes life quite what's the word? As I'm just turning this off, quite difficult to say the least. But we are back and underway. We're going to start our new show, new look to the Pulse. Still mostly the same stuff we're doing, but we're going to expand a little bit and increase this to hopefully 24 hours a day. There goes the voice again. See what happens when you're nervous? Gary Duffy, I need some moringa. Just roll me one, please. He'll be along shortly. Instant Polls, by the way, is our official sponsor. If you want to increase your bottom line, boost your communication with your frontline staff and gather valuable data from your most important resource, that's your employees, then visit instantpolls.online to learn more. Now, this week's poll is your thoughts on One Nation as the leading Australian political party. Don't forget Protagonist at 5, a new talk show. We've had it before, we've brought it back again, talking about overseas stuff with overseas guest and also Australian stuff. And today we'll be looking at Pauline Hanson, as is most of Australia. Now, if you want to vote, just use our QR code on our screen to vote. Each vote is secure and anonymous and verified by 2FA. It's a short, by the way, it's two-factor authentication. So it's, this week's all over the shop like what they say, like a mad woman's dinner. That's what my dad used to say. I would never say that at all. And the result we broadcast on the Pulse after 4 o'clock next Monday. The link will also be published on our Facebook page this afternoon. At the moment, it's the Country Telegraph. Next week, it will change to the Pulse. So just be prepared, be prepared. Same programming, same gorgeous faces. And all that sort of stuff, but just a different name. Share the link and ask your family and friends to participate. Make your opinion count. And I think it's a very important thing that we do. We do need to have a say. We need to make our voice count, because it's very obvious in this day and age, and we'll talk about that very shortly, that there are large organisations and smaller ones that are connected to large organisations, and they are trampling over us, and we must stop it. Before we get into Gary Duffy, we're going to talk about the ISC. I want to play you this from Penny Sharp. Now, Penny Sharp is atrocious. She is just appalling. And she was caught out. She talks about length of time, and she's very dismissive, very cold, very connected with the ISC and with Andrew Cox, and also with Jack Off. A terrible name, Jack Off. Anyway, so let's play Penny Sharp first of all, and then we'll get to Gary Duffy here on The Pulse.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Minister, and your officials. Just coming to the Brumbies, in my long time in politics, I've never seen such grief expressed by a vast number of horse lovers in New South Wales. And what is the situation with the slaughter of the Brumbies? Do you acknowledge the grief that so many of our residents feel? And at a minimum, can you give a commitment to stop the barbaric practice of shooting them from helicopters, which results in a very prolonged and sad, tragic death for these horses on the ground, and very often their foals as well?
Look, there's a few things in that. Look, I really acknowledge that for a lot of people, particularly horse lovers, this is very distressing. But there's a few things that I want to say to you about this. We have done a significant control program in Kosciuszko over the last few years. It has removed over 7,000 horses from the park. Not all of those have been from helicopters, but the vast majority of them have been. We still continue to do rehoming. You would be pleased to know that in the last month we've rehomed 50 horses. The last operation that we had wasn't just about horses, it was about other invasive species. So the operation took out over 2,000 deer, 350 pigs, foxes. There was also foxes and dogs. I don't have the exact number. But it is the case that we will continue to do these operations. I do really want to reinforce, though, that horses that are being controlled by this method, by being shot from helicopters, are not suffering. The entire standard operating procedure for this means that the horses are basically become insentient, less and mostly dead within 30 seconds. This is not something that I know people like to hear about. There's been a lot of pictures that have been put out around the foals. The reality is that the horses die immediately, and the gases in the bodies of the horses over time then expel the dead horses that are there. So it's a distressing thing, and I never thought that I would have to be speaking so graphically about the way in which this occurs. But the thing that I really want to say is that this is done carefully by very professional staff in a way where animal welfare is critical, which means that the horses do not suffer and that they die very, very quickly as a result of the action. So it will remain a control method for us. We're continuing to look at rehoming continues to be something that we do. We are looking longer term, but we're not going to be able to do this anytime in a fast way about other things like fertility control in a smaller area if we could get the numbers down. But it is the case that we will continue to do it. The reason that we do it is that we've actually seen the impact of horses and other invasive species on the park. And, even a lot of the horse people raise with me quite frequently the impact of deer and pigs, which is why we also take such a take a very strong approach in trying to eradicating them from the park. But basically the grasslands that are impacted, the water, the edges of the streams that are impacted as a result of hard hooves on that very fragile alpine environment basically endanger a whole range of other native species in the park. And we have seen, and I've seen firsthand actually, I've been there, the change in the grasslands, in the sponginess of the water, in the health of the streams, in the clarity of the water, as a result of not having hard hooves on those areas. That's why we will continue to do it.
Just to follow up, can I ask how you know that the horses die within 30 seconds, given that shooters say it's inaccurate to be shooting from a helicopter because it's moving so quickly?
No,
the helicopters move on. What on-ground verification have you got of that?
So you need to understand there's a whole sort of standard operating procedure, but the weapons that are used, I think again there's a bit of a misconception that the shooters are aiming to take one shot to kill a horse. That's not the way it operates. They use very high-grade weapons that often use multiple shots, 7, sometimes up to 15, which guarantees that the horses die very, very quickly. It's not this sort of one shot and then they're harmed and then they're wandering around and then the helicopter has to come down and deal with it. There is constant maintenance of it, and that's the way that it's done.
As an environmentalist, how do you live with that 15 shots to kill a horse?
Well, there's also very strict requirements in terms of the type of bullets that they use and the impact that it has on the park. All of that has been considered in the way in which we run the program.
Okay.
Now that's incredible, isn't it? The entire standard operating procedure don't work, does it? It doesn't work. And if they're going to annihilate all the horses in the park, which they will, that's what they want to do, according to the ISC, according to Jack Off. So it's just incredibly bad. I've never known such barbaric procedures for these magnificent animals. Now, this is my issue. When I by the way, I was oblivious to all this because legacy media and most of the independent, which is not independent, they're all getting money from someone, so they're going to pay the piper. But these animals, I put myself into this because they are very intelligent creatures. They do not want to die. They were put there by us, and now we're killing them. They are magnificent creatures. They have a very long history with Australia, and even when serving in the First World War, and they knew what was happening. For example, and I'll play it later, hopefully, the Battle of Beersheba, and the horses knew what was happening. They charged with the Australian troops directly. That's directly at the enemy who were firing at them. And then for their recognition for helping Australia do what they did, magnificent job. The top brass, the mongrels, those still who David McBride, the problem with David McBride was he had people above him. Hasn't changed, but they shot all those horses. They shot all those horses. Killed them all, rounded them up, machine gunned them all. And the soldiers that rode those horses, a lot of them didn't come out of their tents or their huts for a long time because they were so upset. And we still do it. So let's talk about the ISC today. They are very powerful in invasive species mitigation and biosecurity. The in word, by the way, or term is biosecurity. Biosecurity. If you got a grasshopper there, where did that grasshopper come from? It's just incredible. But who checks on what they advocate? Because that's what the ISC is doing. Andrew Cox is a founder of the ISC and our global ambassador. Brothers, sisters, aliens, for the Invasive Species Council. Aliens. Jeepers. You don't get me going about this mob. In this role, he will continue to advance, quote, Australia's leadership in preventing and managing invasive species on the world stage. What does that mean? Kill brumbies and donkeys around the world? Who knows? But if you look at what's happening and you maybe put 2 and 2 together, I'm just saying, what do you get? Andrew Cox transformed the Invasive Species Council from a small bunch of nutters or an advocacy group into one of Australia's most influential environmental organisations during his 12-year tenure as CEO. Now, Andrew Cox is currently leading the global environmental, here's that word again, biosecurity initiative. That's a new effort to accelerate international action on invasive species. Get rid of those donkeys. Get rid of those horses. Why not get rid of people? Now, the Decade of Biosecurity Initiative is supported by all members of the Biosecurity Collective. That's right. There's a Biosecurity Collective. I'm not going to go there at all at the moment. Now, in that collective, Landcare Australia, the National Farmers Federation, NRM Regions Australia, NRM, the National Landcare Network, all state and territory governments, and the Australian government, all drinking out of the same chalice, all drinking the Kool-Aid. Gary Duffy, by the way, he's going to be talking about this, has a few life skills, beginning life as a ringer. He qualified as a mechanic at 19, which was 232 years ago, was an A-grade mechanic, by the way, at 21, becoming a master technician for Ford, Mitsubishi and Mazda. He was a coach of rugby league for 18 years. Rugby league, terrible sport, but he coached them. I could tell some jokes about those things, but we can't because the AFL is under terrible, terrible duress at the moment. Want to dance with a lap dancer. Anyway, he coached Rugby Union in Europe and very successfully. Gary worked, by the way, at several large companies in Budapest, including TEVA Pharmaceuticals, BOSCH, Sony, and at Trinity Colleges. Now, Gary has been a banana farmer, cut sugar cane by hand, invented tools for the automotive industry, and won the Queensland Small Business of the Year and Premier's Award for Innovative Products. Gary currently has a small organic farm in Clarendon and another around the corner which has 4 families of wombats on it, which is very exciting to know that he has people, well, living beings on his property. They just happen to be wombats. Gary, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Mike, and I like the new name, The Pulse. Keep your finger on the pulse.
Thank you so much. It's actually, we used to have it before, and what we've done is we've just brought it back because we found that it was a bit restrictive, not able to get out to a wider audience. So, and with our new, an app will be out in the next couple of weeks, and our website becomes bigger and better than Ben-Hur, and we're going to do it will be streamed to all TVs around the world, so you can watch it on your television and so forth. It's what we did at TNT. We're sort of hoping that we can bring it back. Can I just ask you your candid opinion, and a guy that's been involved with organic farming, so you really, really have to make sure that what you put in the ground is perfect for whatever you're growing, for all organic farmers. What's your opinion on the ISC?
Well, the ISC don't know a single thing about biosecurity. They are devoid of all knowledge of biosecurity. They have no idea what biosecurity is. Biosecurity starts off first with the soil, healthy environment, and everything else. Now, they are calling the brumbies a invasive species. The brumbies were introduced by humans to Australia, so they're not invasive at all. In fact, if they looked around, they could have rehomed a lot of those animals up into North Queensland or up onto some of the stations up there. One thing a lot of people don't know is that I was offered a jockey contract when I was 13, so to be a jockey, and my mum said, no, you're not going on diets, you're going to go on and do a trade. So but horses have been a passion with us. My wife Connie, she used to run a horse riding school out past Emerald there, out at Sapphire. So she grew up on the land as well as I did. But the ISC is have no idea what biosecurity is. Biosecurity is about protecting the environment that's around you, and when the environment is challenged, you need to make sure that you bring that environment back to how, in a sustainable way, back to where it sustains the native flora and fauna of the site. In Queensland, we have the fire ant mob, and they've gone around there poisoning about 800,000 square kilometres with this toxic poison, just killing everything on the land. The Invasive Species Council is supporting that. Now, the Australian Institute of Public Affairs have released a paper this week showing that the Australian government is spending on these NGOs or these not-for-profits like ISC $2 billion a year. So they're paying them $2 billion a year. And these advocacy groups, which used to be called lobbyists, but to get around the lobbyists, they call them advocacy groups. And so they're getting paid that. Now, the green groups like the Invasive Species Council, that group, $174 million a year they're getting. So that's $174 million for these advocacy groups in the green group to push what the similar as the ISC get. We wrote to the ACNC, who manage not-for-profits, and we asked them how the ISC can be registered as a not-for-profit, especially when it doesn't give back to the community and doesn't do a community benefit. It does a benefit for itself, and it does a benefit for a government. So the ISC, there are a bunch of green groups like Christine Malone, Cox, Pianta, and Jack Goff, and all that. It's just, you have a look at the amount that they've paid out in wages to these people, and you look at it. That I think Christine Malone calls herself a ambassador, which is basically a consultant. And Jim Sawley used to do that. He'd call himself a consultant to get around the lobbyist laws. So he didn't have to register as a lobbyist and put himself name down on any paper that he met any government official. He'd call himself an advocacy for something. So it's all been underway, and they're just ripping apart the environment left, right and centre. We're trying to keep them away from our wombats because we want that land for our wombats, and we love going around there, seeing the family run around and enjoy themselves on the land there. But when you distribute poison on the land and the wombats roll in it, they lick their paws, they lick their fur, they groom each other, they pick up that poison and they end up dying a horrible death. That's not environment or biosecurity measures that they know about.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. I just see they're a bit like a virus at the moment. They're expanding everywhere, and I think virus is unkind to viruses to be called that. So, but they are expanding. So many peak bodies have embraced the chalice, the Kool-Aid. That's very worrying, isn't it? Because like most things, if you keep pushing it out, whether it's a truth or not, it eventually becomes a truth because they're all pushing the same stuff. Are you worried about that? I am. I'm particularly worried. More that I read about they're like an octopus, but once they get hold of it, they're never going to let go. The ISC is just being embraced by all these peak bodies. Two things: how do we fight back? How do we expose this mob and all their cohorts? And how worrying for you is it?
It's really worrying for me. As a farmer in an industry like us, which is organic industry. So the organic industry is totally different to the green movement. So, and a lot of people think, oh, you're organic farmers, you're going to vote green, you're in the green groups, you're in this and that. The Greens and the ALP and all these advocacy groups, like Invasive Species Council, are in the green group. Organic farmers and are in environment protection groups, which the Greens are a long way from where they used to be, and they're nothing to do with environment at all, ever, in any shape or form in their current format or who's running them. They're off on planet Pluto somewhere. They're like blowflies around a barbecue, the Greens, and so these Invasive Species Council, because that's who they're in bed with. They just hang around the barbecue trying to get all the extra money from that. And you have a look at it. If we don't start to stand up against Albanese and his government paying $2 billion a year to these advocacy groups, and we don't start to form industry groups that stand up and protect our industries, then we're going to be out of the equation, because these guys are going to be in that minister's office saying, we want to control this here and we've got this and that. That they don't want what's happened in Ireland. They don't want the farmers to come together. So they by this advocacy groups that they have, they try to stop farmers joining together in groups and coming together and having a single voice. And we've seen it in the milk industry, we see it in the beef industry, we see it in grain crops and everything else, that you're being left out because these guys are Trojan horses into your groups, and they're making out that there's some sort of a supporter of your group, and they get people come along to their group and they do presentations, they'll invite you along and you think, yeah, and then we're all doing the right thing, and then we're going along this path, and then you are forgotten about because they've got you in a position where they know what you want to do, but you don't know what they want to do. And it's no different to that. I think a mayor in, I won't go there. I was going to say that the Chinese government put a mayor in California in the Californian government and got her elected as mayor, and she's just been charged with being a Chinese spy. and that's the sort of line that ISC do, that they infiltrate the Farmers Union or the Farmers Federation or the Grain Growers Association or the Sugarcane Farmers Association, and they get into these groups and they say, we're all about protecting you, trust me, we're from the government, type of thing. And that's and if we don't wake up as an industry, as farmers, and we don't start to stand up against it, we're going to lose our farms. There's no way around it. We're going to lose our farming, and people are going to be without food, and they're happy with that.
It's terrible. We do have to run. We have a very, very, very big show today. 3 hours of fun and excitement. If somebody wants to find out, actually, I'll ask you one more question. I shouldn't do this, but I'm being naughty. There's a book by John Leake, Peter McCullough is a good friend of ours, and John and Peter are in business together, and John has just written a book called Mind Viruses, America's Irrational Obsessions. You could almost do that for Australia, Mind Viruses, Australia's Irrational Obsessions. And that's where the ISC and all these other wacko groups come into it, because they have created this obsession between our two ears, haven't they?
Well, they create the narrative of the fear, and by bringing in saying, like fire ants are going to kill all your crops and all the echidnas and everything else, and going to attack all your seabirds and everything else, and all these different things are gonna, and they incite the fear, and then and back up a government program for and on behalf of the government. And that's how they work. They're an advocacy group for a policy of the government, and they're paid to do that. They get, like if you're getting $2 billion a year, or a slice of $2 billion a year, you're going to be, and you look at what they do. They're on social media, and I think there's been a vet from New South Wales attacking your page, and I have no idea. I have no doubt he is an advocate for the ISC and attacking you, and that's probably why you got hacked and were taken off air, is because the same thing. They do the same to my page. I used to have 4.5 million followers or reach in over 28 days on one of my pages. It's down to 52,000. So
we know that Facebook, that's why we're heading back to our own. I mean, for example, we have chat on our website. No one can touch that. It's ours, so it's going to have free speech. No worries about being censored. If you're on Facebook and the others, of course, you do what I mean, and in fairness, which is unfair, by the way, but it is their platform. Same thing with YouTube, and same thing with Rumble. And we know from our past that we were smashed by all the above. But you understand that because it is their platform. However, they do not represent free speech. And look at X also, I can't leave them out. They do not do not push free speech, do not at all give you, if you disagree with them, or if you have an opposing narrative, you can bet your bottom dollar they're going to take you off as soon as they can. So
when you look at Christopher Foley, is now his office is attacking people like the Farmers Federation groups, things like that, and saying, like, if you criticise our government, Christopher Foley government, we're going to pull any funding off you.
And that's just terrible, because again, we go back to the days of COVID. It's, you stop that connection between two human beings, two scientists can't have a discussion, which always leads to a better alternative. And that's what they did. They stopped that free speech or that sharing of ideas, and they imposed censorship like nothing on earth. Jen, my business partner and great producer, we had a chat this morning. We do believe that it's probably worse now than it was around COVID, because there is so much happening. But I have to ask you this, as we do have to go, just quickly. Can you smell something? Smell. I can. It smells like the stench of corruption. And that's what's around at the moment, isn't it? The stench of corruption, because you mentioned, and I think it's more than that, than 2 billion. But when you have 2 billion bandied around, you can bet your bottom dollar there's going to be all sorts of shenanigans happening.
Yeah, and I think the ACNC can look at its charter of what actually is a not-for-profit and pull all these organisations out of not-for-profit status and say, you are a new industry, and this new industry is the advocacy industry, and you are in it making money for someone or making a benefit for someone, therefore you are not a not-for-profit. And the ACNC needs to step up and say, okay, these groups like the ISC, you're not a true charity, you're not a true not-for-profit, you don't deserve this status and you should go.
Yep, totally agree. If somebody wants to find out more about you, Gary, how do they do that?
On Facebook, Bunya Park Moringa. Just look up Bunya Park Moringa, social media. They've left me alone on that page at the moment. So, but it won't be long.
Well, our numbers are just appalling. We see all these people coming on Facebook, for example, and it says 111 new followers and nothing happens. I mean, it's very, very slow. It's like Rumble. We had a video that had 3 million views, and it was amazing how it stopped from 100,000 a day or sometimes 50,000 a day. It stopped to 2 and then stopped to 0 soon after. So they can, if they want to stop you, they're going to make sure that they discredit you in every way. If that doesn't work, then they're going to just pull you off the platform. And there's a lot of that happening, I think, too, even with the ISC, a lot of pulling things off. So I think we have to be aware that the ISC, the governments, and any other body that has a whack of power, they're going to make sure that they shut you down, and any sort of free speech or criticism of what they're doing, which is never bad. Criticism is always good, but any form of criticism will be shut down. And if they can't negate your numbers, then they're going to just turn you off, as others have found out. Gary Duffy, thank you so much for joining us. You're our first guest on the new Pulse, so thank you so much. You look beautiful in the background, and good to hear that. Good to hear that Pup's feeling much better too, or getting better.
Yeah, I'm closer to 70 than 69, so we need younger people to step up to this plate.
But, well, you're the new. Don't they say that the 70 is a new 70? I mean, it doesn't change. You get old. That's it. Gary Duffy, thank you so much for your time. This is The Pulse.
See ya.
So many places where they're using 1080 poison baits.
Yeah, it's an absolute travesty, mate.
It really is.
1080 baits, if you've seen what a 1080 bait does to a dog, it's one of the most horrific things you'll ever witness. And the second you see something like that, you'll be a big advocate for getting rid of 1080 baits. It's not the way to solve the problem with wild dogs and foxes and things like that.
On Sunday, August the 30th, I got a phone call from my husband. I wasn't here, I was out in Aramac staying with family. And he rang me very distressed and crying on the phone and told me that Tippy was dead. And he then described to me how that happened. He said he was inside, heard Tippy outside yelping, which progressively rapidly went to screaming, and he was thrashing him, throwing himself around. He went under my car, which is parked on the veranda in a carport, threw himself under the car and up under the wheel arch, obviously looking for sanctuary. Greg tried to grab him and got hold of his leg, and as he did that, he just dropped dead. So he rang me and told me about this, so I was obviously quite distraught as well. And then he had to go into town, into Bundaberg, to pick up for a pre-arranged appointment. And when he came home a couple of hours later, Faye, our Maremma dog, was also dead. So within a couple of hours, we're not sure, any time between 9:30 and midday is when she died on that morning. So yeah, Greg took them to bury them, and he took Ted with him when he buried these two dogs, and Ted was there with him. And after Greg finished burying them, he wouldn't leave. He just laid, he sat, moved around. He wouldn't leave the gravesite. So Greg had to literally pick him up and take him away. So he knew his mates were in there. So, yeah. Sorry.
1080 is not a humane poison, and despite people's claims that it is humane, we now recognise that that's not the case. It's not good enough to pretend to ourselves that it's humane and keep on doing the same old thing that we've been doing for years. There's no excuse to keep on using a poison that is not humane and that we know is not humane.
Want to be part of the conversation? Then let us know on the Pulse Interactive Live Chat Room at thepulse.today. We tell it as it is. Today's news talk, The Pulse.
And welcome back to the Pulse. I keep wanting to say the Country Telegraph. Similar, very similar stuff. It's just going to be a lot more broadsheet. Shane McCarthy is the General President of AgForce Queensland. That's a leading agricultural advocacy group. A fifth-generation sheep, cattle and cane producer from Hughenden. He has extensive experience in the industry. Before his presidency, Shane served as AgForce's Deputy Chair and North Regional Director. He is also a Flinders Shire councillor, actively engaging in local governance. Shane is committed to advancing Queensland's agricultural sector, focusing on infrastructure, development, biosecurity and sustainable practices. Shane is here today to talk about the Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act 1999 and specifically the EPBC Farmer's Guide. Shane, thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Mike.
Tell me exactly what the EPBC Farmer's Guide is.
It's a bit of a mouthful and it's a bit of a disaster, to be honest. So it's it's been with us for 20 years, but it's the second layer of veg management that producers in Queensland have to go through. There is some pretty stringent veg management laws now that we have and have had for 20 odd years, and the EPBC is the second part of that. In the end of last year, the federal government rushed through, with the help of the Greens, rushed through some changes to that act that greatly concern producers. It's pretty far-reaching. There's new clauses in there, what you can and can't do, but there's a 15-year time limit on veg management of if you haven't cleared any regrowth within 15 years, that then means that you have to go through a whole another level of procedures to be able to maintain that land, and it can be quite costly, anywhere up to $160,000 per referral. And these referrals, and this is what we're trying to work through at the moment, is the referrals. The legislation's been set, but they've got to still work the standards out, which is how we work within that act. And some of the things that they're taken up in this act is the ability for farmers to put fire breaks in, the ability to put new fence lines in, the ability to change polypipe lines, put trough infrastructures, water infrastructure in, just general day-to-day management of their landscapes, which I would argue that they do better than most in the world. In fact, there's stats that came out of South America end of last year that said that Australian farmers are 42% more environmentally friendly than their peers, which is not small numbers, and they're not small countries that are our peers as well.
Tell me, because we have interference from those sitting behind a desk or those who have a degree but really haven't been out on the land, and it's basically all ideology at its worst. How do the farmers feel about it? It would almost make farming prohibitive, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's got the potential to do that. Look, and as per usual, it's legislation thought up by people who don't actually have skin in the game. Farmers weren't consulted on this. I know that the government is fond of saying that we're trying to just bring the agriculture industry into line with other industries such as mining. Now, I would argue mining and agriculture are two different industries, as in one which is farming, is cyclic, and we've been there for a long time. We will be there for a long time to come, whereas mining is extractive. So why they want to lump us in together we don't understand. And at the moment, there is still a lot of work to be done. And look, the feedback we're getting from farmers on the ground is it is very, very confusing. There's not a lot of clarity on what they can and can't do, and whether they can. I've got a farmer in southern Queensland that is coming into drought, wants to leave the mulga there for because he's coming into drought, and if he knocks the mulga trees over, he's going to cause a dust bowl. But because he's coming up on that 15-year timeline, he's probably going to knock those trees down, and otherwise he's going to have to go through a whole another level of being able to maintain the vegetation on his block. It's just, probably works very well on a piece of paper down in Canberra. It doesn't work well in reality on land.
So how do we move forward? You would obviously be chatting with government. By the way, is this a state or a federal government initiative?
So it's a federal government initiative. Under the Constitution, states control land, trees and water. Mm-hmm. But this is not that act. They're not overriding state law. It's coming in from the side as under the Biodiversity Act, which is basically they're saying that we're not saying that you can't clear. We're not saying that you can't maintain that land. Mm-hmm. We're just saying, is there any matters of national significance, whether there's a rare lizard or a plant or something like that there? And if there is, what are you doing about it? Mm. And also it has implications of if I'm going to maintain that vegetation and do a bit of clearing of the regrowth or encroachment, is there any invasive species that can come into that area, such as weeds and that? And if there are, well, I may not be allowed to clear that vegetation. Hence why they're trying to probably put buffel grass on an invasive species list.
I'm just wondering, so is this another initiative pushed by the Invasive Species Council onto federal and state governments?
Look, it was I wouldn't say they're not involved, but there was a report done about the environmental status, and that was done a while ago. And one of the recommendations from that report was that they needed to review the EPBC Act. They did do it, and it was I know both Labor were talking to the Greens and they were talking to the Lib Nats, and yeah, they did the deal with the Greens on that, and hence that we've got these it's pretty much unworkable laws. It can be an absolute disaster, and if you're in the reef catchment areas, which Queensland has a lot of, that's even worse. So there's drainage, rivers, streams, creeks and drainage lines, and you're not allowed to, you've got to leave vegetation within 50 metres of all those, which on the coast, drainage lines change on an annual basis depending on if floodwaters go through there. So it can be an absolute, make land unworkable, to be honest.
So here's just, if you can just help me out here. The Invasive Species Council, which they're like this ugly octopus. They're everywhere. You can't get away from them. They're controlling, much to the horror of those that understand it, they're controlling a great deal of this country, and they're pushing it down a particular line that they want to take us back to beyond when white man first got here. So you can expect dinosaurs and giant wombats maybe if they have their way. But they're saying, because the farmer is a very, very environmentally conscious person. If they're not, they go broke. So they look after the land and they do what is necessary to make sure that their property is in excellent health, or as much as possible. So you have these bodies such as the ISC, working their way through government, and whether it's state or federal, and I would imagine there are some local councils too, that they're saying to you that what you've done the last couple of 100 years is wrong, that we know best, and that you have to do what we say, or you will be fined, and you will also find that to do what you're doing on the land is obsolete, and so are you, bugger off, and that's what happens. The problem with that is, besides the ISC not showing any real evidence, and they don't show real evidence, they manipulate it, and you've seen that, and I've seen it before. If you want to get something through or convince someone, you just juggle a few things, and you can do that. Then you mix that with the ideology of these governments, such as the Labor Party in various states and local areas and federally. They've got this ideology. They want the planet to go back to whatever it was, and Australia is going to lead the way, which will end up setting his belly up. So how do you fight this? And I always say they've drunk the Kool-Aid, this fanaticism that they have of taking us back to before white man got here. How do you fight that? Because your farmers, the farmers, if you keep going this way, there is no farming. You're just going to have to walk off the land or do something, or maybe just get rid of all your cattle and sheep and whatever, and just you get some carbon offsets, and that's what they're doing in the Kosciuszko National Park. So what do you do? How do you protect Australia's food security? Because that's what's under attack, besides the farmers and other parts of Australia.
Yeah, look, it's a hard one, Mike. I suppose we just keep battling away with it. Look, there is a lot of misconception out there about what farmers actually do and how we do it. Look, I've just spent 10 days at the Brisbane Royal Show at manning a stand there for AgForce, and it is interesting that the general public that come through have a good opinion of farmers. They probably lost that link where we used to have an uncle, a brother, a father, a grandfather, or something that was linked to the land. They don't have a lot of that in society at the moment. But getting that back, making that link back is one way, because the general public coming through, like I said, they have a general thirst for what we do, want to know what we do and how we do it, and they generally have a good opinion. It's the loud, noisy environmental groups that unfortunately sometimes have the ear of government. So I suppose, in answer to your question, when my job is done, if farmers say something about these laws that you're going to bring through, they're no good for farming. That resonates then with the general public. The general public then go to their local MP and say, "This is bad for farmers. It's bad for me. You need to take what they're saying into account." That's the ultimate. How we get there is we just have to be a little bit more parochial about what we do, a little bit less what we normally are, which is, most Australians and especially Australian farmers are very humble about what they do. They feed not only feed and clothe the nation, but we feed and clothe them that well that we export 70% of what we actually produce, so we contribute to a wider regional feeding those and clothing those people as well. So we're vitally important, but it's getting to that wider public. How do we get to there? We just got to be a little bit more vocal and parochial about what we do and how we bloody well do it.
You don't want to get the farmer angry, a few tinnies under his belt, 12 gauge. Football team's lost, wife won't talk to him. It's not a good looking sight, is it?
No, not at all.
And I'm speaking from experience. Anyway, look, I think the issue is truly serious. I think farming along with other sectors that's associated with land. I think it's under attack beyond all belief by basically the Labor Party. The Labor governments are doing what they can to make life quite difficult. The LNP, who knows what they're going to do. One Nation, I mean, I think there's a fair bit of hot air. We'll talk about that later in about 2 hours' time or an hour's time. But I think we have to stop this attack on the farmers, because if you guys walk off the land or say it's just too bloody hard, we are in a lot of trouble. You mentioned 70% exports, but just to feed the nation. And we can't keep having the price rises. Government needs to probably give a farmer a big hug and say, we've done a bad job by you so far. We now need to make it better, because if we don't, the country's stuffed. And that's what I think anyway. Shane McCarthy, if somebody wants to find out more about AgForce Queensland, how do they do that?
Yeah, by all means, jump on the website and the details of what we do there and how to get in contact is all on the website. Mm-hmm. Just jump on the website.
Thank you so much for your time. This is The Pulse.
G'day, my name's Andy. I am a dairy farmer in Queensland. In the year 2000, there were almost 1,600 dairy farms in our state. Today, that number is 220, 1/8. The Rosinski family, they are also dairy farmers in our state. Their contract is almost coming to an end, and they cannot find a new home for their milk, which may force their closure. Watch this.
Hey everyone, Jason Rosinski. 4 weeks to go. Still no contract. Still no conversations. Still no rumblings. Nothing. You would think that, being that I'm in the Wide Bay electorate and our member is Tony Perrott, who is the State Ag Minister. I've spoken to him twice. He knows our situation. Keep getting told behind the scenes things are happening. Well, we're 4 weeks away, Tony. What is happening? What are you going to do about it? No point having a dairy plan in Queensland signed up to with processors and government and East Oz Milk if no bugger honours it. Because that's where we're at the moment. It's a useless piece of paper. Useless. What are you going to do about it? Are you actually going to honour things and try and grow the dairy industry in Queensland? Or are you here to screw it into the ground? Because I tell you what, we had 1,500 rough farmers in the year 2000 when you all deregulated it. And now we're at 220.
The state government, in February this year, signed up to the Queensland Dairy Plan. Its key targets were to lift output to at least 300 million litres or more of white milk annually by June 2032, to achieve a 3% increase in the size of the producing dairy herd in Queensland, and a 5% lift in production per cow, and to counter reliance on interstate milk by boosting local fresh milk production, which currently meets roughly 45% of state consumption. The Queensland Primary Industry Minister, Tony Perrott, said it was crucial to give the industry confidence to borrow and invest, and I quote, "I want to see fresh milk production in this state grow, and in doing so, the department will play its role, particularly in research and development and extension," which is very interesting. Because the Norco CEO, Michael Hampson, said recently, Norco is working on an active capital project to expand its Gold Coast bottling facility, though he said progress could be accelerated with support. My concern is that the state government is providing a lot of lip service and partaking in photo opportunities, but when push comes to shove, they're not being proactive. And I would think that losing dairy farms in Queensland, which is seemingly the case, is very counterproductive to the Queensland Dairy Plan which really sets out a pathway for a great amount of growth, not only on farm with milk production, but also encouraging and enticing new families to join the dairy industry in our state. I implore the state government of Queensland to take action, to put money where your mouth is. You are a well-performing government, but you are performing dismally here, and that doesn't need to be the case. Come along for the journey. Invest in our Queensland dairy industry. Bring confidence back to our dairy industry. Help facilitate change.
Hello, Sarah from the Bureau here with your national weather forecast for tomorrow. So that's Friday, the 21st of August. So we'll start off by taking a look at tomorrow's weather map. We've got that lingering cloud band extending from the west all the way into the east, with the potential for 10 to 20 millimetres or so about northern inland parts of New South Wales and southwestern parts of Queensland, with showery conditions also continuing throughout the far southeast in those westerly winds. Then out in the southwest, a chilly start with morning fog and frost patches. So let's go around the country now, taking a closer look state by state, starting with Queensland. In the southwest, we're expecting cloudy conditions with these scattered showers, rain areas and possible thunderstorms that will gradually move eastwards throughout the day. Elsewhere, dry and sunny conditions with just a few very light showers about the exposed east coast, but tending more scattered about the Cassowary coast. Maximum temperatures mostly in the mid-20s, but grading up to the low 30s as we head up towards the northern tropics. Much cooler under that cloud band with mid-teens expected. For Brisbane, morning fog patches are possible through western areas, then a mostly sunny day, a top of 23 degrees. Moving on to New South Wales, that cloud band will bring those scattered showers, rain areas and possible storms throughout northern and central inland areas, with those showers tending more isolated east of the Divide, remaining dry about the far northeast and the southwest with possible snow showers for alpine areas. For Sydney, a possible early morning shower, then a sunny afternoon, a top of 23 degrees. For Canberra, also a slight chance of an early morning shower, clearing to a mostly sunny afternoon and a top of 17. Moving on to Victoria, it will be a cool day with scattered showers about the northeast ranges and as well about the southwest coast. Isolated showers pretty much elsewhere, but generally near and south of the Great Dividing Range. For Melbourne, morning fog patches are possible, then the chance of a shower, a top of 16. Moving on to Tasmania, scattered showers throughout western areas, tending more isolated elsewhere. Daytime temperatures expected to be in the mid-teens for Hobart, a cloudy day with showers and a top of 15. Moving on to South Australia, morning fog patches are possible throughout the southwest, while morning frost patches are possible about the Flinders district. Isolated light showers about the agricultural areas, mostly about the windward slopes and coasts, while the scattered showers and rain areas across the north will ease during the evening. For Adelaide, a partly cloudy day with a shower or two and a top of 16. Moving on to WA, we've got those scattered showers, rain areas and possible storms extending from the southern Pilbara into the interior. But for the southwest land division, a really chilly start with morning fog and frost patches throughout inland areas and just a slight chance of a light shower about that far south coast. For Perth, possible morning fog patches about the hills and a sunny afternoon, a top of 23. Moving on to the Territory, we've got these scattered showers and possible storms throughout the far south. Also a risk of a light shower about the coastal areas of the top end. For Darwin, a slight chance of an early morning shower, then a sunny day, a top of 33. So if you're after a more detailed forecast for your local area, you can head to the Bureau's website, app or social media. Otherwise, we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.
And welcome back to The Pulse. Nice to have your company. This is our first show at The Pulse. We have The Protagonist, which is a panel talking about One Nation, coming up in the next hour, just after 6. Instant Polls is our official sponsor. Now, if you want to increase your bottom line, boost your communication with your, as I get my teleprompter working, with your frontline staff and gather valuable data from your most important resource, your employees, then visit instantpolls.online to learn more. Now, the results of last week's poll, which we have already posted on our Facebook page, how has the culling of brumbies impacted your mental health? It has impacted me greatly. The majority of respondents, 82.4%, indicated they think about the subject a lot. About 9% mentioned they haven't thought about it. 5.49% responded with a little. Almost 3% stated not a lot. And overall, the poll indicates a significant interest in the subject matter, particularly among the older age groups and females. New South Wales showed the highest engagement among the states surveyed, followed by Victoria and Queensland, which is just, it's very sad what's happened at the moment with the poor old brumbies. We need to stop it. I don't know how we're going to do it, except keep going and going and going, and all those that are fighting the good fight and take away the internal politics, which there's a fair whack of. They're all coming from this in a good place, and they don't want these horses knocked on the head, and we need to stop it also because the evidence, there is no evidence. What they're saying, Penny Sharp just lied through her false teeth in Parliament because there is no evidence, and it's an extremely cruel. But think about that horse who understands that, because they're beautiful creatures, understands that they're being shot at, but doesn't understand why, and they understands that that humans want to kill these horses. If you look at Victoria, I think there's none in the high plains anymore, around Bogon and that sort of stuff. So it's in a terrible, terrible predicament. The horse, Australia, look at the ISC with everything, farmers being trampled on, rights being taken away, political parties coming out with just pure horse crap, telling lies about just about everything just to get a vote, and then you watch whoever gets in next election, whether it's in New South Wales. I do think that Labor will get back in. I think the LNP under Kelly Sloan is pathetic. It is truly pathetic. Kelly Sloan, we have asked you many times, many people have asked you many times to do something, and you're hiding. You are hiding, Kelly Sloan. But look at your past. Your past is with the ABC, and the ABC have always sided with the Labor Party. So we're going to put in someone who wants to run New South Wales on behalf of the LNP. They are not, that person is not Labor light. They are tarnished with every feather that that Labor have to hand out. And Kelly Sloan, you are going to be if you ever get in, and you won't get in, but you would be a terrible, terrible leader. And the LNP in New South Wales, what a joke. Where are you? Where's your backbones? Just absolutely pathetic. Anyway, I shall calm down. I'll go and take my blood pressure tablet, have a coffee, and I'll play this first.
Management was deciding in the dark. We lacked a method to hear from people across the organisation. We started using instant polls under our brand. Their expert design templates made it effortless to ask the right questions of the people who matter most, our frontline teams. We've seen improved profits and happier staff, and we now make better company decisions thanks to instant polls.
You're with Mike Ryan, telling it as it is. Today's News Talk, The Pulse.
And welcome back to The Pulse. Tanya Hargraves has been a horsewoman, not a horsewoman, she loves horses, for 60 years, mostly involved in equestrian sports and general riding. Since she found out in 2023 that the New South Wales Labor government was planning on shooting the brumbies, she has become an advocate to save the brumbies and believes they are a living symbol of Australia's colonial heritage and our freedom. Her forefathers fought in World War I and World War II. She understands how the Brumbies and the horses and the Australian light horsemen played a pivotal role at Beersheba in winning the war. She has rescued 10 Brumby horses and can see how intelligent they are with a strong conformation. In 2024, she organised a protest on the lawns of Parliament outside Canberra. People came with their Brumby horses, calling for a royal commission into the mismanagement of the Kosciuszko National Park by the National Parks and Wildlife Service, RSPCA and Penny Sharp's office, and her in particular. And as for the National Parks and Wildlife Service and the RSPCA, first of all, don't give money to the RSPCA. They are pathetic. They are not looking after the animals. They are such a political organisation. They are disgusting. And as for the National Parks and Wildlife Service, I lovingly refer to them as a militia from Ukraine, and they are dreadful. They are terrible, and they need a royal commission immediately. And the park needs to be managed by the locals again. That's what needs to happen. It won't happen under Labor, and unless Kelly Sloan does better, Labor will be in power for the next bunch of years in New South Wales. Or if she gets in, which she won't, but if she gets in, you'll have still a very, very Labor-leaning LMP, and it's just pathetic. Ms. Hargraves founded a graphic website and publishing business. She is also an advocate for banking reform and a fairer, more accountable financial system that supports Australians, not the big end of town. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Mike, for having me.
Yep,
good evening.
That's
How are you?
Yeah, we refer to you as a horsewoman. I have to you're not half horse, are you? No, we're not. No, we're not. Hey, you share the same opinion that I do and many others do, that there should be a royal commission in the culling of the Brumbies in Australia and not just New South Wales. Do you think we should have that royal commission also encompass the National Parks and Wildlife Service?
Yeah. National Parks and Wildlife Service, Invasive Species Council. We could bring in Penny Sharp's office. You know, all the organisations, RSPCA, all the organisations that are involved in this atrocity. There was an inquiry in 2024, and it was, I don't know if you listened to any of it, but it was just mind-blowing, some of the things that were brought out during the inquiry. And I guess, Wes Fang was quite outspoken and an advocate for the Brumbies. But what really got to me was the findings of the inquiry came back and they weren't published. The government had modified the findings before they published the document. So to make it look...
I just butt in, I don't mean to be rude. What do you mean they modified the findings?
Well, they changed the outcome, the findings of the inquiry.
So the whole thing was a waste of time. They should have just written it themselves.
Yes, well, the government could do that. It wasn't a waste of time. I'd never put down a public inquiry as a waste of time. It exposed a lot.
But if they've changed the outcome, if they've changed the, it's like
it's outrageous.
It's like writing a book and you decide to have the hero as the villain. I mean, it changes the whole book, and that's the same thing.
Well, apparently that's what happened.
Oh my God.
Wes Fang and what's the name from the Animal Justice Party? You know, they were really upset about it and spoke out in Parliament. Also, they said that, and I just thought, well, you're right. Why have an inquiry when the government has complete control of it? Well, not during the inquiry, but the outcome of the inquiry. So from there, they kind of got away with killing over 5,500 horses. Aerial shot over 5,500 horses. And I went to Sydney 2 weeks ago to the New South Wales Parliament and listened to some of the Labor MPs speak about the Brumbies. And I just, what another thing that really disturbs me is they say, and they just lie, they say they remove all the horses. They don't remove, well, only through rehoming, but they don't remove the carcasses of the horses. They leave them there to die. They leave them there, to die sometimes very slowly. And the carcasses are left to rot for the wild pigs and the cats and the dogs to feast on. And now apparently New South Wales has a real wild pig problem. Pigs breed up very quickly.
It does, and they're in Parliament too. Sorry,
That's right.
being a bitch. Sorry about that. Slapped me down with the feather. How do we fix it? How do we fix this?
Well, it's really hard to turn something into that people can consistently complaining about. And we have like one petition with 260,000 signatures. When recently the debate or the two petitions that have been signed for the lower house and the upper house of New South Wales Parliament, we got over 20,000 signatures, which is all that is required for the petition to be tabled or to be accepted into Parliament very quickly, within 2 or 3 months. So there's thousands and thousands of people that are advocates for the Brumbies, or this is affecting in one form or another. I have always thought it would be good if we could move it. We're not getting anywhere with New South Wales Parliament. I have put it to Michael McCormack, federal MP. I've always thought it'd be good if we could have a federal act or a bill passed in Parliament to protect the horses, not just in New South Wales, but Australia-wide. America has a federal Parliament bill, or legislation, that protects the Mustangs and the wild horses in America. New Zealand run a really well thought out, and I think federally the wild horses over there are protected. There's no reason why Australia can't have, a federal Parliament legislation in place. Except, it needs to be lobbied very hard. At the moment we have Labor in power. And that's one of our biggest problems in Australia. We have Labor in federal Parliament and in most state parliaments. So they have a lot of control right now. Normally that's usually one or the other. You have Labor in most of the states and then Liberal in federal. But if we could pass, I've put it to Michael McCormack, and I spoke to Angus Taylor at the Kiandra rally, asked him to put a private members bill up, or put it forward. And, his speech, you probably heard his speech, his talk at the rally at Kiandra. He believes that the community and the locals should be managing the horses. So previously I'd already had that in the bill for Michael McCormack to look at in 2024. That, we have 10,000 acres set aside at Kosciuszko National Park, and it is managed by the local community or an association set up. The Brumby people manage the horses. It's not that hard to manage them, at the end of the day. All this money that is spent on aerial shooting can go towards that association. We could run fertility control. We could have it as a tourist attraction so people can come in and study the Brumbies and study how the herds interact. And I think it'd be a great thing because, the horses would have a future. And if they overpopulate, we could easily rehome them. But Michael McCormack, said he would do it, and then because he had spoken out a few times in Parliament about the Brumbies, and then he all of a sudden he went overseas for a little while, and that day he got back, he rang me and said he won't be doing it because it's a state issue. But it doesn't have to be just a state issue. And if we can pass legislation in Parliament, in federal Parliament has priority over states. So a law in state Parliament cannot be conflicting of a law passed, legislation passed in federal Parliament. All state laws have to complement, all state legislation have to complement federal legislation. So yeah, it'd be, because Brumbies are all around Australia. They're not just in New South Wales and Victoria.
Yeah.
And another thing that really concerns me is that they've never done a proper scientific peer review environmental impact study in New South Wales Kosciuszko National Park to demonstrate how the Brumbies endangered have any effect on endangered species. It's never been done properly. Actually, I had Andrew Cox on my Facebook page the other day, and he was very commenting because I put up.
Have you seen someone about it?
Yeah, I had to get counselling, and
you'll get over it.
Went to the doctor and I was, hey. What? Sorry.
It'll take some time to get over it. I suggest.
Well, I came back. He was just whinging because I put up. I put a call out to the Brumby advocates to contact all the Invasive Species Council's affiliates and their funders, which, apart from the government, we have the Ian Potter Foundation, Australian Communities Foundation, the Perth's Environmental Foundation, the Mullen Trust, the Gary White Foundation, Lord Mayor's Charitable Foundation, the Paddy Palin Foundation, which is a whole... Paddy Palin is a camping retail store, and the Bob Brown Foundation. There's a whole list, and I thought, well, we should hit him in the hip pocket and, contact these organisations and tell them that, what they're funding or what they're supporting is really bad. I mean, the cruelty to the animals is a cruelty to the horses. There's evidence now, we have proper evidence to prove that the horses aren't dying within, what did Penny Sharp say, within 30 seconds. They're just not, they can't be. And we have the evidence to prove that now. And so the government really is on notice by the people of Australia. And they're not fulfilling their fiduciary role. They're not, Penny Sharp isn't fulfilling her role as a public, as the environmental minister, public officer. And she needs to be transparent on how they're killing these horses. I say killing, I don't say culling.
Culling is it's a terrible word. Same as feral. It's a word embraced by those that want to spread propaganda. We do know about propaganda.
It's propaganda, yeah.
Yeah, we used to have someone that worked for us in a past life, wasn't that long ago, that was invited to be the person in charge of the information operation between Russia and Ukraine, and he decided to work for us instead, and because he saw that it was just all pure horse poop. And the same thing, we had a guy that also used to lecture NATO on propaganda, worked with us too. And so what they're doing is they pick words out and then they hype it up. And as Andrew Cox says, one of his speeches, that it has to be guerrilla warfare almost, or just get out and get the message.
Oh, for goodness sake.
The horses and the environment is under attack, and it's working. You look at all of the state governments, and if you look at Labor with their ideology, with their absolutely bonkers ideology, along with the ISC, or it's just it just melds into this, big green ugly piece of stuff. I won't be rude. I have to be nice on my first day, you see. tomorrow. So tell me, just before we wrap this up, what about in Queensland? Because at the moment, as far as we know, the Brumbies are not being culled or killed at the moment. Do you see that?
They're starting. They're starting apparently this month, in a couple of weeks, killing the horses on not in Queensland, on the Central Coast, Coffs Harbour area, in a national park there.
Yep.
So it's not going to just stop at Kosciuszko National Park.
But it's
they're not going to
state.
stop.
Queensland's a different state. But again, though, you see, what they're doing to, again, an ISC initiative. The fire ants, got to get rid of those fire ants. And let's poison the land, poison all the animals, poison. But we've got to get rid of them. And that's, again, pushed by these unqualified. A lot of them are unqualified. They're just absolute fringe lunatics with a Kool-Aid in their belly. And they convince all the other governments, get rid of the fire ants. And in friend of ours, Trevor Hole.
They push their way onto people's properties and put poison everywhere.
It's terrible.
And apparently they drop it from the sky into the national parks. And I don't know what poison it is, but it's not just killing fire ants.
No, well, the ones that did at the park are after those bigger ants, rabbits and horses and all sorts of things. That's 1080. And in Queensland, in Queensland, because we've had...
they use it in Kosciuszko as well.
Yeah, it's just terrible. 1080 is what they're using. Yeah, it's terrible. If somebody wants to find out more about what you do, how do they do that?
You could probably the easiest way is to contact me on my Facebook page, Brumby Horse Run Free, or through Messenger, or email tanya.hargraves@finelinedesign.net.au.
Fantastic. And you understand the true value of the Brumby or the horse, Australian horse.
Absolutely.
And it goes right back to the First World War. If you look at the First World War, the Beersheba, which was one of the great battles. But it was very sad what they did to them at the end when they just rounded the horses up and killed them. I mean, and we still haven't lost that love for animals, have we? We still want to, if it moves, kill it. Very sad.
That's according to our socialist government at the moment. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, very sad. We haven't forgotten.
Socialist, I believe, coming almost a communist government. The Labor government is heading that way.
Don't get me going. We're just about there. 2030. Can't wait.
Oh, yes, 2030.
Comrade Tanya.
What's happening up in Melbourne?
Oops, sorry about that. I just killed your microphone.
Our Crown land.
Yes. It's all very interesting. I think the whole thing is it's unravelling in 2030 is going to be a pretty wild time. I'm going to go. Normally I used to play on the Brekkie Show this at the start of the show, but because we both understand the value of the horse to Australia's heritage, and the horse got us to this position in life, which we kill them for that.
Absolutely.
The Battle of Beersheba was truly an amazing battle. We pieced together footage from an older movie, and we put it with this music. And I thought this would be a great track to go out from our conversation. Tell me this, would we have done what we did in the First World War without the help of the horse?
No. We'd be run by Germany. We'd be run by Hitler right now.
Or the Second World War.
Oh, that's the Second World War. Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
right.
The First World War. Yeah, we wouldn't be a Western free country.
It was terrible, wasn't it? And we do need to reflect and cherish the horse.
We do. We need to keep fighting for our freedoms.
We do.
Our forefathers didn't do it for nothing.
Unless we recognise our past, we're not going to move very far forward into the future.
No, exactly.
Tanya, thank you so much for talking with us. We appreciate your time. And you're our third guest, so you're it. We'll send you a plaque.
Congratulations on the Pulse.
Thank you, and we'll send you a ticket to Hawaii. No, he won't, but I just thought I'd say that. All excited.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
We'll organise that for you. The check's in the mail, as they say. Tanya Hargraves, thank you so much for your time. This is The Pulse.
They carried stockmen. They carried soldiers. They carried legends from Beersheba to the mountains of the high country. The thunder herd still rides. Skies and snow gums bow in winter light. 1,000 shadows cross the dawn, their wild hearts burning through the night. Their blood remembers campfire smoke, long dusty trails and stockmen's hands. The freedom of a younger world still running through this ancient land. Listen. The mountains know their language. Listen. The valleys speak their names. They are the thunder rolling beneath the southern sky. From Beersheba's fields of glory to the mountains standing high, no chains can hold them, no walls contain them. The spirit of the light horse rides, they are the thunder herd, and the mountains know their names. Across the burning Sinai sands, they carry fate in steady hands. Through dust and fire they thundered on toward Beersheba's fateful dawn. Horse and rider forged as one, a rolling wave against the guns. The desert shook beneath their stride as Australia rose in pride. They are the thunder rolling beneath the southern sky. From Beersheba's fields of glory to the mountains standing high, no chains can hold them, no walls contain them. The spirit of the light horse ride, they are the thunder herd, and the mountains know their name. And standing on the highest ridges, when the world below has gone to sleep, the ancient stallions face the darkness, guarding secrets they still keep. They remember every stockman, every drover, every mountain horseman, every charge, every rider who never came home, every horse who carried him there. Ride on. Ride on. Ride on. They are the thunder. Dark and wide, the spirits of the old light horse still ride beside their stride. No king commands them, no empire owns them, for freedom runs within their blood, as surely as rivers shape the land. They are the thunder herd, and they still ride States.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Shortly we'll be talking to Simon Cooper. I just love that track, by the way. I think it really encapsulates how the horse and and its rider did the ultimate sacrifice in many cases and died for their country. And to think that we first of all machine gunned them down in the First World War. That's the horses, that is, after doing what they did. Is appalling. And the second thing which is appalling, I have to say, is what we're doing at the moment. Just absolutely terrible. And I think we do need to take stock of where we're at as a civilization and as a country, because as a civilization, the human beings globally are just intent on killing each other, destroying the planet in many cases. Just look at the Middle East, for example. The war that was going to take 3 days, still going. It will go on for a long time, and it will be reversed if Iran has their saying things. And secondly, look at how we're treating the animals. Animals rely on humans to do the right thing by them. Doing the right thing, if you listen to the ISC and all these other absolute whack jobs, they will never do the right thing by the animals. They are just despicable creatures. And the ISC, the people that run it and those that founded it, you are the invasive species. And as we would say in the classics, bugger off. This is not the Country Telegraph, this is the Pulse.
The king may rule over land and sea. The lord may live right royally. The soldier ride in pomp and pride. The sailor roam over ocean wide. But this or that, whatever befall, the farmer, he must feed them all. The writer thinks, the poet sings, the craftsman fashion wondrous things. The doctor heals, the lawyer pleads, the miner follows, the precious leads. But this or that, whatever befall, the farmer, he must feed them all. The merchant, he may buy and sell, the teacher do his duty well. But men may toil through busy days, or men may stroll through pleasant ways. From king to beggar, whatever befall, the farmer, he must feed them all. The farmer's trade is one of worth. He's partner with the sky and earth. He's partner with the sun and rain, and no man loses for his gain. And men may rise, or men may fall, but the farmer, he must feed them all. God bless the man who sows the wheat, who finds us milk and fruit and meat. May his purse be heavy, his heart be light, his cattle and corn and all go right. God bless the seeds his hands let fall. For the farmer, he must feed us all.
And welcome back to the Pulse. Nice to have your company too. This is the day one of our new look. Today, 3 hours every day now. It'll be 3 hours this week. And the next week, we'll extend that by 2 or 3 more hours. So it'll be a block of about 6 or 7 hours. Eventually, we'll get to, I would hope, 24 hours. We just need we need a sugar daddy. We actually need an investor. We used to have investors, but found out one was aligned with another country, and the other was aligned with what was between the ears, which was not aligned with the planet. I'm not going to go there. Stop it. Although Robert Sivers is going to ask me some questions in a couple of weeks. So we'll see what I divulge. Do I have to go to a faraway island to hide? Hawaii would be very nice. Simon Cooper is a passionate and dedicated animal advocate with a strong commitment to improving the lives and welfare of animals. A long-time supporter and advocate of the Animal Justice Party, Simon has recently been endorsed as the Animal Justice Party delegate for the Terrigal electorate. Simon is an active advocate who believes that creating meaningful change starts with engaging the community. She has spoken at numerous rallies, using her voice to advocate for greater compassion, stronger animal welfare protections, and better outcomes for animals. She has also taken her advocacy directly to the community, hitting the pavement, the hustings on numerous occasions to gather signatures for animal welfare petitions and speaking with people about the issues affecting animals. For Simon, advocacy isn't simply about raising awareness, it's about connecting with people, having important conversations, and turning compassion into action. She is passionate about giving animals a stronger voice and encouraging the community to recognise that their welfare deserves greater consideration and protection. Simon, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's great to be here again and yet really enjoying your program.
Thank you very much. They haven't pulled the plug out yet on us, so we're still going. We're going to start on Tuesday. Anyway, we didn't start Tuesday. You had to have a hiatus for 2 days. I said, and I say often, that you can judge a society by the way they treat their animals. How would you say, out of a rating of 10, is the health of Australia when it comes to treating animals?
Wow, okay. That is a very interesting question, and it's a very easy answer. So basically, this government, for some reason, is normalising the mass killing of animals, and that shouldn't be a policy response. And it's not just the brumbies, it's all animals that are suffering, talking about pigs, deer, native animals and other species that are being managed through lethal control at a scale that should deeply trouble anyone who cares about animal welfare. And what concerns me most is that success appears to be measured by how many animals are killed, not by whether suffering has been reduced or whether ecosystems are genuinely recovering or whether humane alternatives have been properly funded. So these animals may be labelled as feral, pest or invasive, which, like you said before, are just horrible terms. And the Invasive Species Council can basically name any animal as being feral or a pest or invasive, and they basically get more money from the government. So this is sort of the corruption that we're up against. And those labels do not make them incapable of pain, fear or suffering, i.e. the animals. And a government that claims to care about welfare, which I doubt very highly, based on everything that they're doing, but they should be doing everything possible to reduce harm and not just say in words, but in action. Instead, they're repeatedly reaching first for bullets, aerial shooting and destruction, like you said before, poisons. It's always the first default response is the lethal control. And it's not even the animals that are causing all of the damage to the ecosystems, but the government basically won't go there. They just basically put the blame on animals, the brumbies and other animals as well, and completely disregard all of the man-made developments that's tearing right through native forests, bushland. It's just everywhere, unfortunately.
People who have watched the show, I think you should see psychiatrists for those that watch too much. You could join mine. We could share a couch together, lie back with your 430,000, whatever. But I'm just thinking, part of what I do, and I should probably separate myself from these things, but I mean the war in, and I'll be quite honest about this, the war between, or the attack on Gaza. To me, it was don't kill innocent people, because I always picture a child with absolute terror, and the parents seeing their children decapitated. And I always refer to a photo I saw 2 pics. First one was his father carrying his son, who obviously was dead, and then the second one was a wide shot, and there was nothing below the rib cage of the child, and it just showed me that there is no excuse. Thou shalt not kill, and it was the child or the parent were not in any way a threat to anyone, yet they were just annihilated. And the same thing with the horses and the other animals. A horse is a very intelligent creature. When we look at the history of the horse, without the horse, mankind would not be where it is at the moment, which I'm sure if you're a horse, you'd be going, oh, what did I do wrong? Because the way we treat living things, and a horse, it's only a feral animal. No, it's an animal. It's a living, breathing, thinking beast, animal, same as you and I. If you look at a lot of ecologists would refer to that too, that they are living, breathing, and to actually kill them or just obliterate that animal, to me, as with the people in Gaza and the children that were annihilated in other parts of the world, you say, no, this is not how humanity should be. We are discounting life so easily. Oh, well, don't worry about it, nothing to do with me. And I find the problem I have at the moment with what's happening we use the horses as the example, is that the lack of regard for the intelligence and the importance that particular animal plays, not only to Australia and its history, but to what it's doing at the moment for its family, for the environment, which is doing more good than bad. And all the lies that the ISC and all the lies that Penny Sharp and all the others come out with, they are just lies. It's called propaganda, and there is no evidence to support what they're saying. Just a manipulation of some of the older records. To me, Simon, that is an indication that this country has lost the plot, and the world has lost the plot to allow these things to happen. And I had a Christian guy work here, and we were TNT, and we're talking about the annihilation of the Palestinians, and the children being obliterated and stuff, families being wiped out. And that person who went to church every Sunday and Bible lessons and whatever said, oh well, bad luck, it's just collateral damage and we move on. We can't do that. And the same thing with animals. We can't do that. We've come so far that we've gone backwards. And I find that an indication of where this world is and where this country is, and it just destroys me.
Yep, you're not alone there, and that's why we need to basically show just how strong the community can be at next year's state election. I'm hoping that Labor won't get re-elected, but like you said before, it's sort of more than likely that they will. But I just want to let people know that there are other choices, and for example, as being the Terrigal electorate for the Animal Justice Party, I have been a member of the Animal Justice Party for about 12 years, and I know firsthand all of the amazing things that Emma Hurst, who is the current New South Wales Animal Justice Party MP, has done. And she has fought tirelessly, and she has connected directly to native animals being harmed under government systems. So, for example, Emma Hurst chaired the New South Wales Legislative Council Animal Welfare Committee inquiry into licences to harm native animals. So if you just think about that for a moment, licences to harm native animals, that is a thing. So we're not even talking about the non-native animals. Basically, native animals can be harmed and shot. So, and she examined the species and numbers affected, the welfare impacts, the orphaned young, adequacy of assessment processes, transparency, and whether alternatives are being considered. And it's clear with all of these animal issues that the government is basically not even considering the humane alternatives. They are there, they exist. You've got immunocontraceptives that work successfully in the United States to manage the wild horse population over there. They know all of this, and yet for some reason their default go-to is shoot, or poison. And the inquiry heard that more than 485,000 native animals were subject to licences to harm in New South Wales in 2025. And advocates argued applicants are generally not required to prove damage or show non-lethal methods have been tried or provide independent evidence. There's no accountability. This is why Emma Hurst's work matters so much. She's not just talking about brumbies, she is exposing a much wider system where native animals can be harmed or killed with limited transparency, limited oversight, and inadequate consideration of non-lethal alternatives. Why does it take crossbench MPs like Emma Hurst to force transparency? There is documented evidence that New South Wales environmental protections are not keeping pace with the destruction happening on the ground.
Incredible. Reports are that, not reports, we know that koalas, greater gliders and other threatened species should be protected immediately. And yet I read in one of the periodicals or one of the newspapers that they're looking at culling koalas, which I have to tell you, we should hang our head in shame for that to even to be talked about. How can we make things better? How can we look after those that need looking after? How can we live, hand in hand, not joined at the hip, but how can we live as a society with these beautiful animals, whether they're a horse or a koala, greater glider, whether they're a wombat, whatever? How do we do that?
We basically need to make sure that we ask the right questions, do the right actions, try and get enough community outrage to force the government to look at what they're doing and force them to realise that the community on a whole, and most of the community, is against all of their lethal methods of controlling so-called animals that they deem are doing damage to the environment, which, as we all know, that is not the case at all. I mean, if we just look at Kosciuszko National Park, so all of the so-called alpine destruction that Invasive Species Council is blaming on the brumbies, basically what they conveniently leave out, because it doesn't suit their agenda or their narrative, is that the Snowy Hydro project cuts through half of Kosciuszko. You've got the kilometres and kilometres of the power lines. You've got the 3,000 housing development for the Snowy Hydro workers. You've got climate change. The climate change issue is a big one that the government conveniently ignores. 30% of brumbies were wiped out in the horrible bushfires back in 2020, 2021. And yet the government still is blaming the brumbies. And you've got the ski resorts, the four-wheel drive tracks, the thousands of tourists that trample through Kosciuszko National Park every year, all the campsites, all the caravan grounds. And the government is just still blaming everything on all the so-called environmental damage on the brumbies. It's basically false, and whatever their agenda is, it's just really difficult to comprehend that this is basically all they have been blaming everything on the brumbies. And the ISC do not, in the true sense of the word, when it comes to conservation, I acknowledge that they are concerned with protecting native ecosystems, but I don't believe its approach represents genuinely holistic or compassionate conservation. Australia's own State of the Environment reporting identifies climate change, habitat loss and degradation, as well as invasive species, as major threats to biodiversity, but less invasive species. Human activities such as urbanisation, infrastructure, agriculture, logging, mining, energy developments are major causes of habitat loss. More than 60% of Australia's nationally listed threatened species are seriously affected by habitat loss. Yet the focus of the Invasive Species Council is so often on animals as the problem, rather than examining the enormous environmental damage caused by human activity. And that imbalance is why I don't consider their approach to represent the conservation philosophy that I support. as I said before, with Kosciuszko, we hear constantly about brumbies damaging the environment, yet humans have dramatically altered the landscape as well, as I have gone in and to explain. And I absolutely support renewable energy to an extent. I mean, you've got solar farms, huge wind farms that unfortunately also decimate the environment as well. So it is a very tough question, but genuine environmental protection means acknowledging and minimising the environmental impacts of every development, regardless of its purpose. But the most important thing that I just want to sort of say is that Emma Hurst from the Animal Justice Party is the only MP who has consistently fought to try and get animal welfare as a priority and try and stop many of the cruel practices that is happening to animals. So we all have a chance to vote at the next state election, and I just strongly urge people to look where they put their votes and look at all of the policies of the parties. So Animal Justice Party, we have about 63 policies and about 3 position statements. So that's a lot. And I think it's worth noting that even though Emma Hurst is a one-person party, she has achieved so much. She has managed to ban the breeding of dolphins in New South Wales in marine abuse parks. She's managed to increase tenfold animal abuse from happening. So, I mean, that's just some of the things that she's done. She's allowed, there's been money that's been put into refuge centres for women with domestic violence so they can take their pet with them. We also want to introduce Vedicare, which is free vet care for pets for the low socioeconomic community, which would be amazing to reduce the wild cat, street cat population. There's a number of things that she's achieved, and we just need to get her re-elected next year, because if we don't, then there literally will be nobody in Parliament to stand up for animals.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think we need to take stock of this situation at times. Right now we do. We need to start living in harmony instead of the old kill, kill, kill out of the Quentin Tarantino movie. Simone, if somebody wants to find out more about you and if they wanted to contact you to help join the good cause, how do they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a committee member of New Dawn Safe Haven, and we are a Brumby sanctuary. We've got 2 Brumby sanctuaries, and you can find us on Facebook. New Dawn Safe Haven Inc. is our Facebook page. You can also have a look at Brumbies Without Borders Conservation Group, which is quite a large Facebook group dedicated to everything Brumbies. So you can sort of put your comments on there, look at our posts, like our posts, share our posts, and basically do whatever you can let's do whatever we can to get this government out next year.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Simone. Must get that right.
No problem. Thanks so much for having me, and great job. Keep up the great work, Mike.
Thank you. You just do a bit, but you'll go to heaven. I won't. So don't forget, give me a wave as you pass me by as I'm sitting there at a Robbie Barwick on a hot rock, drinking your whiskey, bad whiskey, because we'll be in hell. But it'll be fun getting there, maybe. Simone Cooper, thank you so much for your time. This is...
So much.
Hello, Sarah from the Bureau here with your national weather forecast for tomorrow. So that's Friday, the 21st of August. So we'll start off by taking a look at tomorrow's weather map. We've got that lingering cloud band extending from the west all the way into the east, with the potential for 10 to 20 millimetres or so about northern inland parts of New South Wales and southwestern parts of Queensland, with showery conditions also continuing throughout the far southeast in those westerly winds. Then out in the southwest, a chilly start with morning fog and frost patches. So let's go around the country now, taking a closer look state by state, starting with Queensland. In the southwest, we're expecting cloudy conditions with these scattered showers, rain areas and possible thunderstorms that will gradually move eastwards throughout the day. Elsewhere, dry and sunny conditions with just a few very light showers about the exposed east coast, but tending more scattered about the Cassowary coast. Maximum temperatures mostly in the mid-20s but grading up to the low 30s as we head up towards the northern tropics. Much cooler under that cloud band with mid-teens expected. For Brisbane, morning fog patches are possible through western areas, then a mostly sunny day, a top of 23 degrees. Moving on to New South Wales, that cloud band will bring those scattered showers, rain areas and possible storms throughout northern and central inland areas, with those showers tending more isolated east of the Divide, remaining dry about the far northeast and the southwest with possible snow showers for alpine areas. For Sydney, a possible early morning shower, then a sunny afternoon, a top of 23 degrees. For Canberra, also a slight chance of an early morning shower, clearing to a mostly sunny afternoon and a top of 17. Moving on to Victoria, it will be a cool day with scattered showers about the northeast ranges and as well about the southwest coast. Isolated showers pretty much elsewhere, but generally near and south of the Great Dividing Range. For Melbourne, morning fog patches are possible, then the chance of a shower, a top of 16. Moving on to Tasmania, scattered showers throughout western areas, tending more isolated elsewhere. Daytime temperatures expected to be in the mid-teens for Hobart, a cloudy day with showers and a top of 15. Moving on to South Australia, morning fog patches are possible throughout the southwest, while morning frost patches are possible about the Flinders district. Isolated light showers about the agricultural areas, mostly about the windward slopes and coasts, while the scattered showers and rain areas across the north will ease during the evening. For Adelaide, a partly cloudy day with a shower or two and a top of 16. Moving on to WA, we've got those scattered showers, rain areas and possible storms extending from the southern Pilbara into the interior. But for the southwest land division, a really chilly start with morning fog and frost patches throughout inland areas and just a slight chance of a light shower about that far south coast. For Perth, possible morning fog patches about the hills and a sunny afternoon, a top of 23. Moving on to the Territory, we've got these scattered showers and possible storms throughout the far south. Also a risk of a light shower about the coastal areas of the top end. For Darwin, a slight chance of an early morning shower, then a sunny day, a top of 33. So if you're after a more detailed forecast for your local area, you can head to the Bureau's website, app or social media. Otherwise, we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.
And welcome back to The Pulse, and welcome to The Protagonists. We're all here again, and I see some comments popping up. If Cam could just fix that for me right now. Has there been a turnaround in the nation's political discourse, or are things still the same? It's understanding and understandable that no one is really talking about the LNP or the coalition, as they surrendered to the Uni Party years ago and have, well, very little credibility. The country has lost its voice, and it's really the cities where politicians are pretending to be focused. Pauline Hanson has become the flavour of the month, and what she was vilified for saying many years ago is no longer controversial. This is a sign of the times and a result of shockingly bad planning on the part of our federal governments, including the coalition. Immigration is rightly a big issue, but can one nation make the changes it's promising, or is it just talk? Is it good politics and bad leadership to demonise some sections of the community? And is Pauline as good as it gets? Is she really talking about big change to the way this country is governed? Or will things stay the same? And are those backing the current establishment backing her to install a new face? She is now a darling of some mainstream and alt media, such as Rebel News with Harvey Yemeni, who are not holding her up to scrutiny. especially Avi, Yemeni, and even Carl. I love you, write to me. They and conservative and libertarian commentators should be. Why aren't they? Now, our panel will have some insight. Foreign policy, defence policy, national security, financial and economic regulation, banking, environmental protection, energy policy, all require a change in direction and transparency. Why aren't all these issues being put to one nation, and the Uni Party for that matter? Now, our panel today is exceptional. We have Michael Offerdale. He's lived in Tubia, or not Tubia, since 1998, when his father purchased the historic Tubia Hotel Motel built in 1911. For 28 years, the Offerdales have kept the Tubia Hotel alive as a cornerstone for travellers, farmers and families across the district, a symbol of hard work, hospitality and the enduring spirit of rural Queensland. Now, since the Land Act transferred of the parts of Tubia, Michael has become a leading voice for regional Australians, fighting for transparency, fairness and truth in government processes. Rob McMullen is a philosopher, musician, political candidate and supporter of the Australian lobby group, which is Oz Lobby. That's a grassroots people-powered movement that advocates for Australia First policies. He ran as a United Australia Party UAP candidate for the federal seat of Griffith in Queensland during the 2022 federal election. He is a representative of a think tank in the US called Natural Law Institute, which applies the philosophy of natural law. And finally, we have Robert Barwick. He's the national chairman of the Australian Citizens Party. Robert is the party's media spokesman, contributor to the Australian Alert magazine, and presenter of the greatest podcast in the world, The Citizens Report. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me.
Good to be here, Mike.
I just want to ask you, first of all, Robert, could you just tell me your views? Because at the moment, I haven't seen a whole lot of Pauline lately, by the way, but whenever I saw Pauline, she was on the attack on immigration, standing up for Australian values and that sort of stuff. And by the way, I have to make it known that I did vote for One Nation in the last election. Whether I do it this time is probably highly unlikely. That's just my own, where I stand here. Robert, can you just tell me your thoughts on Pauline Hanson as she stands at the moment?
Well, I think the sentiment of the voters who are supporting her is real. There's a genuine backlash to the uni party system, which is people see as completely corrupt, has completely let them down, and so people have turned away in droves. It's coincided with some really tough economic conditions, and the couple of things that happened at the end of last year economically. There were some other things at the end of last year, but a couple of things that happened economically was interest rates went up again, back to their highs, and the government took those rebates off electricity, and electricity is now the biggest driver of the cost of living, right? The energy price, and they just see these politicians from the major parties get on TV and sound like machines, saying the same old thing, and they're not prepared to accept it anymore. At least Pauline sounds like she means what she's saying, right? She does come across as authentic in the fact that she doesn't. The other politicians sound like they're making up what they're saying. She doesn't sound like she's making up what she's saying. So the sentiment is real. There is I do pay attention to the polls that do a breakdown and show you that there's a bit more than half of the people who say they're going to vote for her who describe themselves as a hard vote, and there's around 38%, 40% who are a soft vote. So they are saying they'll vote for her now, but they might be attracted by a better option if they find one. But Mike,
you're in media. I've observed media for a long time. I've been in politics for 33 years. And I've had a lot to do with One Nation. I've worked with them closely on some key issues, mainly to do with banking. And I have to be quite frank. While I'm happy that the uni party system is being broken, I see some really disturbing signs that sections of the establishment are moving to attach themselves to One Nation. And the only motivation there, as far as I can see, is that they want to make sure that they get to steer where One Nation goes and potentially takes the country. And that's natural. They're always going to do that. The vested interests are predatory. They sink their fangs into political power. They make sure their influence is known. But the Australian people want a real alternative to the uni party, and it's got to be more than rhetoric. And I don't think it's a good sign what I'm seeing with not so much. I mean, the one that got the attention initially was a certain high-profile, very prominent billionaire attaching herself to Pauline. I'm more concerned about the fact that Pauline's just employed 2 people from the Australian Banking Association to run her office, and I can tell you, this is my view. You can kick out every immigrant in Australia, but after you've done that, if you don't take on the power of the banks, the duopoly of the supermarkets, the 3 insurance companies, the 2 airlines, the 4 consultants, these big corporate powers who are the reason we have a uni party. They control both sides. They're way too influential and powerful in this country. We have a cost of living crisis economically that the people are feeling, but we've got an economy concentrated in a handful of big corporations in each sector who've never made bigger profits. It is rigged in their favour. And if you don't take them on, you can kick out every immigrant you like. You will not fix the problems in this country. And I'm seeing those powers attaching themselves to One Nation.
Mm-hmm. By the way, our poll is, which the QR code, you can just catch it. It's on our website and stuff, and on the on Facebook and whatever. This week's poll is your thoughts on One Nation as the leading political party, which is very apt to what we're talking about at the moment. Michael Offerdale, you've been very, very critical of current governments. What's your thoughts on Pauline and One Nation as they stand at the moment? You need to turn your microphone on, if you wouldn't mind. That little button is turn me on. No, we're not. We haven't got that. So what we do is Campbell will fix it, and I'll go to our next guest, Rob McMullen. What's your views on Pauline at the moment and where she stands?
I'll just check. Can you hear me nice and clear?
We can hear you lovely and clear.
Great. So I guess the two questions are, the first being, is the rise of One Nation an indication of something different happening in politics? I think so. You can see it not just online, because we all get sorts of curated feeds online and social media, but I'm seeing it in real life on the ground. People talking to me about politics that have never spoken to me about politics before, and people are not happy. It's not working. Some of it's a protest vote, some of it is genuine support for Pauline and her and what she's been saying for 30 years. I do think something different is starting to happen, and I think we would do well to lean into that. However, the second question is, are they going to deliver, and are they going to deliver what the Australian people want? And as Robert brought up, it is very important to understand there are so many vested interests. So what we did is, I'm part of the Australia Marches events team. So we put on the events, 3 in Brisbane so far and Canberra. And an offshoot of that is the Australian Lobby Group. I'm not officially back end of the lobby group, but I'm an advisor to it, that sort of thing. So in our second event, I think it was October 19th, we organised for a coffin. While Pauline, I think it was actually Australia Day. I think it was Australia Day because Pauline came on Australia Day. As she was on stage, I played the song for her to come on stage, caused the drama. That was pretty fun. As she finished her speech, we had 4 guys carry a coffin through a crowd of about 10,000 people, dropped it on the stage in front of her and we said, this coffin signifies the death of foreign lobbying, because you are correct, there are so many external influences acting on our government that our government has neglected to act in the interests of the Australian people. So the Australian Marches team is to lean into the Australia First. It's a remoralisation of our love for our nation, our history, our people, our country, our culture. It is Australian cultural revival, but out of that, we have grown this vehicle of the Australian Lobby Group. And so that's where we actually have a lobbyist in Canberra now. All the backdoor access, he can get in there and talk to politicians, because when you go down to Canberra, yes, you can vote in whatever politician you want, but there are people knocking on their door. So the whole point of the Australian Lobby Group is to answer the second question. Are they going to do what the Australian people want? Well, if you want to support the vehicle that has been created to pressure them to do exactly that, then I think they could. The problem is that if we don't have that external pressure as well, where we go beyond just simply voting for who we want, then we leave that playing field up to these external influences, and then the politicians don't do what we want. So yes, I do think we're seeing something different in politics. Yes, I think One Nation they're definitely not perfect, and I have every sympathy for people who have a criticism of them, but I do think it's a waste of time worrying about influences that don't have a possibility of going somewhere. So for that reason, they seem to be the main vehicle for something different now.
Can you hear me?
Okay, Michael, we can hear you now. Can you just tell me what your views are on Pauline and where she stands at the moment?
Well, yeah, like I was trying to say before, I think it's the greatest reality show in the history of Australia. It's waking so many people up to politics and everything that's going on around them. So like I noticed with the people sort of following and interacting with my situation in Tubi, that everybody's learning these little bits and pieces of stuff that's like all of a sudden awakening them to everything else, and they're questioning what's going on. So what I'm really hoping for is that in itself's a really good thing for Australia, to bring such a large percentage of people up to a point where they actually care about politics. They're looking at it and they're making the right decisions. So regardless of what the party ends up being with the success or not of One Nation, this is still a really, really good thing. Like 25% of the country's woken up in a year to say, look, something's wrong with the LNP, something's wrong with Labor. Well, obviously it was wrong with Labor, but it's going to take a lot for them to come back. All the promises and all the stories people tell, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. At the end of the day, you're selling out our country and everyone's starting to realise it. No one can pay their bills. Like I run a business, I got 3 kids. It's the hardest frigging thing in the world. That's the reality of where most people are at that come over my bar and talk to me. And like at the end of the day, for the bush, if One Nation's able to win the bush, that's a great thing. We've got the National Party back, or whatever that is, to have a representative body that will go out there and lobby for the bush and give us that protection.
Robbie, it's actually an interesting point that Michael brought up, because the bush really is resonating with Pauline and One Nation. But it's not the area that they need to win. And sure, it's a hugely important sector of Australia. But the votes, they live in the big smoke. How do you think she'll go in the big smoke with the woke votes and the Greenies and the Labor? You got all sorts of a mishmash. That's where most of them are. And even in the Victorian election, which you're in, the Victorian election again has Pauline, and she will resonate. She's resonating magnificently in the bush. But when it comes to the major markets, major cities, how do you think she'll go there?
Oh, even here in Victoria, she's at about a quarter of the vote, which is unheard of once upon a time. Remember, we're called the Socialist Republic of Victoria down here. And can I say, look, what we call woke is quite an exaggerated phenomenon. And my kids went to a school in Coburg in Melbourne, which is now sort of inner north, just above Brunswick. Now, Brunswick is fully woke. If you go to Brunswick, you'll find all the woke things you'll want to see, right? But my kids were at a school where you didn't see any of that. There was all this stuff that gets highlighted about what's happening in the education system. None of it was an issue, because there's actually, funnily enough, the migrant, the preponderance of the migrant community in places like northern suburbs of Melbourne and western suburbs of Melbourne, etc., they're not into that stuff, right? And so it's sort of contained, and those other areas more on the fringes of the city, but these are very large fringes now and they've expanded rapidly in a short period of time. That's where the cost of living crisis is the worst. That's where the mortgage stress is a killer. It is terrible in those places. And it's become associated with this sense of overcrowding. And you do have a sense of overcrowding because the population has grown so rapidly. It's not, you can argue about the price of housing, but it's the number of cars on the roads, right? It's the people that are fighting over the car park in the train station that's in Rockbank, that's 30 kilometres north of Melbourne, fighting over the car park at 7 o'clock in the morning so they can catch a train to Melbourne to work. And there's not enough car parks. So that's that sort of area. That's where her support is the strongest. And it's among the women. I do follow closely the Redbridge pollster, Kosamaris, who does these breakdowns and they get feedback. It's the women who are trying to make ends meet in the context of rising mortgages, etc. They're the ones who've snapped. And so she's going to do, a quarter of the vote is quite impressive, right, by Victorian standards. And if she gets a quarter of the vote here, she will continue to do fairly well in that regard around Australia. It's just that from a political outcome standpoint, if the Liberals get a bit more than her, then they are the ones who will harvest most of the seats, right? But you will have we're most likely to have a Liberal One Nation government come November.
Rob, what do you think?
Well, I think they're getting a lot of ex-Labor as well. So even, trades, a lot of young men as well. There is also, like I said, a cultural and national identity revival that's happening as well, and that tends to be more prominent among young men as well. So I think, look, across the board, she's stealing votes from everybody.
Which is incredible, and I think, and Michael, you must be, I know how you feel about the current government, and you probably feel the same way we do, and in the bush they're getting a really, as we would say, bum steer. Pauline, she'll do well in the bush. How do you see her doing in the major markets?
Oh, well, you don't know. Like, everyone's hurting across the country, aren't they, really? People can't buy houses. They're getting weird shit taught to their kids at school, like you live on stolen land and all this decolonisation crap. There's, power lines, windmills, bloody solar panels everywhere. I think everyone's just over whatever that agenda is. So, if you can prosecute a case well enough to show that you explain that to the people and how that disappears from their life, like, why would the people in the city not want to get involved in having more freedoms and having a better life and better outcomes for their children? It would just seem insane that we'd sell them that short. But obviously, right in the centre of every city, there's a lot of weirdness going on. So we're probably going to struggle in that area. But yeah, that's what I reckon.
I'm just thinking, Robbie, her policy direction, foreign policy, defence, environment, and so forth. It doesn't seem to be as strong in her enunciating it as she has done with immigration. Is this a problem for Pauline? And does she have good policies on defence, or is she just a bit of bluster here?
Well, Pauline personally sticks to her strengths, her themes. I've been in my party since 1992. I was there when One Nation started in 1996. I started working with them. I contacted them straight away. I was working with them from 1996. I'm the guy who told her advisors about that we need a public bank in Australia, and one of them, David Ettridge, went on radio and said that. And the treasurer at the time, Peter Costello, who had just privatised the Commonwealth Bank, attacked him and said accused him of advocating funny money, and it would cause hyperinflation, and you need a wheelbarrow of money to buy a loaf of bread. That's what Peter Costello claimed in response to that. But I was actually trying to get them to see that they needed real policies. Pauline's more comfortable talking about her themes. She's obviously grown in confidence in the last 30 years. She always sounded quite uncertain early on. She's got that uncertainty out of her voice, but she was given an opportunity at the National Press Club to talk more broadly, and it wasn't, it's clearly not her strong suit. And so the question becomes, who is forming and shaping these policies? Because look, I can break some news here if you don't already know it. Mike, as you're aware, our party was merging with Gerard Rennick's People First Party. Unfortunately, that's hit a snag and the merger's off. So we have to resort back to being the Citizens Party now, and we will, we'll do that, and we do a pretty intense lobbying role in Parliament. But this kept coming up in the public meetings we were having. About what about merging with One Nation, and I agree with Gerard Rennick's response. One Nation's structure now as a party becomes an issue, and I get that everybody who supports her has their hopes on a change, because that's why you support her. But this is not a normal political party. This is, for all intents and purposes, a dictatorship of one woman. She's the president for life, and she gets to pick her replacement. It is not a democratic party. And so while you might have faith in Pauline, but no one person can run a party like that. So she is very dependent on her advisors, and you've got to start asking the questions, who is in the back room there providing the advice? Now, I used to walk into that office and walk into Malcolm Roberts' office quite regularly, and I would have a sense of who they were, and I was never fully on board with them, and they were never fully on board with us, but we were good collaborators around a set of issues, and did some good work together. I don't recognise some of these. I recognise their titles. I recognise where they come from. There are some real establishment figures now in her office, and are they people that have become born again Pauline Hanson acolytes? I tend to think not, because they're not like the other people that have turned onto One Nation because they're hurting. These are people that are part of the winning side of the system. And I'm just worried that these are the guy from the banking, well, two guys now from the Banking Association, they're there to formulate her policies. And people better start paying attention to what those policies are going to be. A policy is not a headline. It's got to have detail. The devil is always in the detail. Most things you don't like about government policies tend to be kind of unintended consequences. Now, Rob was right about the role of the lobbyists in Parliament, right? The vested interests, they have the run of the lobbying board, right? And so they don't care about the unintended consequences. They get the outcomes that they want, but it's up to the politicians to think through what those unintended consequences are, and it's always because the details can be missed, right? You need as much feedback as you can. And I'm now very interested to see what sort of policies are going to come out of One Nation beyond the main themes, because that's going to be the determining factor in, is there going to be a genuine difference as a result of this?
Rob, should they be under more scrutiny?
I don't know about scrutiny, but I'd like to counter what Robert said. And I actually think from the position of the Australian Marches team, we run a event, we're doing a national tour starting September 13th in Brisbane. And one of the central themes is against mass migration. So I personally and the rest of the team be very happy to see her hammering the central point. The reason being, some of the bigger pictures are, Australia's birth rate, last time I officially checked, was about 1.4 children per 2 people. I think it's gone even lower. I heard a number today about 1. So immigration itself is being used to prop up so many facets of our country. People have also made extended presentations explaining that immigration is used to flip electorates in Labor's power forever. Because, as Redbridge pointed out, a lot of immigrant groups vote 85% for Labor, so they're using it to stack the electoral deck, very literally. You can have all sorts of scrutiny about banking policy and the fine details and legislation. It's all really good things to to look at, and it's all very important. But the fact of the matter is, as we say in the Australian Marches team, the whole cornerstone of this house of cards is immigration. Stop the immigration, we have to address the economic issues. Stop the immigration, we have to address the birth rate. And the big picture that we're staring down the barrel of, and we really have about 2 years, less than 2 years to sort this out, is if you look at a country like Japan, in 100 years, Japan will still be Japan. We can't say that in Australia. The way things are going, if you match the immigration rates with our birth rates, and the fact that, this is always sold, hey, we're going to get new Australians in the country. Now Labor have abandoned that, said, no, we're not getting new Australians. We're getting Indian, Chinese, Middle Eastern people. We are getting immigrant communities celebrating being immigrant communities, immigrant culture, nothing to do with you, no cooperation, no assimilation required. They are living next door to you and they're having more children than we are. So we cannot actually say that in 100 years, Australia is going to be anything resembling Australia. So look, a lot of it's important. It's hard to just tackle everything that's important. Everything's so urgent. But I, for one, am happy to see them hammer the central point because we think it is the centre point of the entire house of cards.
Yeah, but they can't just have one policy. Or one focus, and that being on immigration. I understand where you're coming from.
Well, they don't have one, but they can hammer the main one. And to be honest, as we in the marches think, the amount of energy we've seen for these marches around mass immigration, we think that for 85 to 90% of people, that's the thing that actually matters to them, not their policies, not banking policy. Because the vast majority of people are not engaged in politics, but they do want to have a nation that feels like what they grew up in.
And it's interesting, isn't it, Rob? If you see the Prime Minister when he do an announcement, a special announcement, you see the Prime Minister. It's always in some cases the Australian flag is never even shown. It's the Aboriginal flag, or whatever you want to call it. That's there, and there'll be other flags, but at times the Australian flag is never in sight. That also backs up from what you're saying. Because we have lost our way, haven't we, when it comes to who we are? And if I went out to, and you see, even the protest from the school kids who truly still wouldn't understand what the real issues are. They understand what their parents believe or the teachers believe. And you can see that happen in South Australia and in Victoria, both very strong Labor states or Labor governments in power. Whether they're strong Labor-wise, who knows? We'll find out pretty shortly in Victoria. So the protests are part of, I see, as a way of undermining what Pauline Hanson is doing, and the actual, we're racist and we're not racist. And I agree with Pauline at this point that we do need to find our own identity again, become Australians, because at the moment, as you mentioned, it's not the new Australians coming in, it's the Indians and people from the Middle East and and they are encouraged to have their own areas that don't really recognise Australia. It's just like an outpost from India or an outpost from the Middle East. So I do agree, but there has to be more, Rob, than just the immigration thing. I mean, I'm just thinking, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but what's her policies on financial and economic regulation, or banking, environmental protection, energy policy? I know she hates the windmills, as most of us do, but those sort of policies are not at the front of her attack and her cementing her place strongly.
What I'm saying is not everything can be at the front. Something has to be at the front.
Yeah, but you still need to have those because it's more...
Yeah, I agree. But think of it as a V shape. What's at the front? What's the spearhead
But it can't just be one thing. You got to... I mean, if you look at Nigel Farage in the UK, he's used to be, again, the same thing, immigration. At the moment, Nigel is, in my opinion, is a bit lost. And that, and again, a similar setup to Pauline's party too. Michael, in the bush, you have all these issues, and it's obvious that the bush is under attack from state and federal governments. And I've got no idea why they would do that unless there's this ideology, unless there's some sort of manipulation happening of the Australian landscape to not protect it because it needs protecting. It's to protect it because people need to make money from it, and they aren't the farmers. Do you see Pauline Hanson pushing the immigration, V, as Rob would say? Do you see her resonating with the Bush on the immigration policy? Do you think she should be pushing economic stability, looking after the farmers, doing this sort of stuff? You think that resonates more with the Bush? And again, I haven't seen a whole lot of those things lately. I just see it as, we must stop this immigration occurring. We must kick out these people. We have to do that and this and that. But when it comes to the Bush, you're interested in making sure you have your own land. You can have your land and not being taken off you. Make sure you can all make a buck. Make sure that your kids and your family are better off than they are at the moment. You think she should be pushing those issues more with, say, your friends or your area or your constituents or whatever in those particular, in the bush communities?
Well, it depends where you're looking at it from. So if you're in the bush, you're seeing a lot of that from her and her party. So you've got David Farley, you've got Barnaby Joyce, you've got a few others popping up all over the place now that know a bit about the bush, can shoot a gun and chase a cow. So I think she's actually doing a pretty good job with it. Yeah, like we'd obviously love her to do a lot more, but they're pretty understaffed. There's only so much they can do, and immigration is the tip of the spear. But I think that we're firmly on the edge of it there somewhere, and she's spoken pretty well about us. A lot of people think that the bush is only concerned about farmland, but bugger all people in the bush actually own a farm. We're concerned about our kids, our future, our communities, having that control. Like a town like mine, we don't even have drinking water or sewerage. Like Aboriginal communities everywhere have that. There's so many crazy things that just get sort of let through the loops, and I think everyone in the bush is picking up on that now, and they're starting to understand that if we get a voice back, and if everything's transparent and everybody's able to have a say in things, well, that's only going to be good for us, because at the moment we have nothing. We have no voice. We were sold out by the Liberal National Coalition in Queensland when they joined together, and they stole the voice out of Queensland. And essentially the same things happened right through the country. So it's really, really refreshing to see Pauline out there. And to be honest, that's one of the biggest probably conversation topics you hear in the bars. Like, what have they done this week? Like, it's great.
Robbie, the criticism of Nigel Farage was that he started to bring in a lot of the Tories. They come back into the fold. Come in. We want you here. You have that experience. You can help structure our party in a way that it can win an election. The missing link there was that they failed. Those ones that Nigel brought back in were in most cases failures. Can you see the same problem with Pauline by bringing in those from the LNP? Because if I recall correctly, the last federal election, they bombed out dramatically.
Well, I think I can see that. You've got a little bit of that phenomenon already. Pauline said that she doesn't want a bunch of has-beens joining One Nation, and she would say she doesn't need it. But there's certainly at least a bit of a trickle in that direction. And look, I'll be frank. I'm not hugely impressed with the people who are part of that trickle. They haven't set the world on fire. I mean, my party we have a standing joke in our office about who we call backbench Barnaby. And our standing joke is backbench Barnaby is the greatest politician in the history of Australia. Whenever Barnaby Joyce has been on the backbench, out of power, just listen to him. Barnaby Unleashed is great. He's an excellent communicator. He promises the world. Everyone gets excited about when he starts going after them. But Barnaby has been Deputy Prime Minister not once, not twice, but thrice. And Government Minister Barnaby is the most useless political animal in the history of Australia. The single most useless. If things like net zero are an issue, and I think it's an issue, he's the guy that agreed to it. He didn't take a stand on that. And I know people in his party who did take a stand, and he didn't take a stand. And so he's been able to skate by because somehow this marriage was made between him and Pauline, that he looks like he brought them some kind of credibility, and people like our fellow guests here who are big fans should be asking credibility to who though, right? Because if the signals that I'm trying to sound the alarm about so far are to the establishment, the people that are the winners in this economic situation, that hey, this is a safe pair of hands here. You do not really have that. You don't have anything to fear. You should be concerned, because that's going to infect everything, including, you can say, look, I fundamentally disagree that immigration should be the tip of the spear. I think there is an issue there, especially in what's happened in the last few years, and especially with this Indian deal. This Indian deal is completely unbalanced and just frankly weird. And every aspect of that should be looked at. But the economic problems in Australia, when people start making the current problems about Albo, I'm thinking, what, we've got the memories of goldfish. Go back to May 2022. Are you telling me it was okay in May 2022? There's a reason the country turned on the Liberals after 9 years and voted Albo in, right? It was a mess. It was a disaster. And this is a genuine uni party thing. And if a bunch of the other side, the coalition side, are jumping over to Pauline and she's accepting them, what you're getting with those people is what you don't want, which is institutionalized politicians. And they're the ones that have a reflex in them to listen to the influential, listen to the vested interests, accept the calculus of normal politics, and they're incapable of cutting through and say, what will it take to actually show the Australian people we can be trusted again? What will it take to deliver for the Australian people? And the problem is, you don't see those voices of influence whispering in their ears. You just see their public statements. Well, look, let's grow up. We're all old enough to know, if you accept a politician's public statements, you're a fool, right? It's by their fruits you shall know them. And that's why it is important to look at policy. It is important to actually say, well, how will this make a difference in Australia? And even immigration. At the public meetings I've had, I said what I've said about immigration just now. The cautionary reaction isn't coming from immigrants, who, by the way, go and meet a bunch of immigrants. One of the things that defines an immigrant mostly, they love being here. They love being. There's an interesting fact. I know an immigrant, an Afghan guy, who told me the number one thing he would like to teach the migrant community in Australia is they don't have to vote for the party that was in power when they came in, but they do. And the reason they do is they're so grateful to be here. They just had this love of the party that was in power when they came in. And he says the migrants have to understand their vote. They're responsible citizens now, and they should vote normally. But they do not take their citizenship for granted. A lot of these people. Yeah, there's some strangers on the fringe, but that happens everywhere. If you make that just the number one issue, and you're not addressing the economic issues, which is what we're all in pain about, right? You can get rid of them. And I was going to say, these public meetings it's the farmers that are the cautionary tale when we talk about immigration, because what they're worried about is someone will come and do like a Trump on migration here, and suddenly, although they want to do the restructuring so you can employ more Australians, etc., right? They know that if you pull the rug out from under it too fast, they will be left high and dry. They will be left in the lurch, and they will suffer enormously. These are white farmers telling us this, right? Real salt of the earth people, real Australians, and these are the sorts of details that matter. And that's why, you can get excited. I'm excited about the fact the voters are prepared to vote for something differently. I think One Nation will benefit from scrutiny and criticism. Because the good thing about them now, because they're not completely institutionalized, they will be sensitive to that, right? But if everyone just says, oh no, don't say anything, right? Just cheer them in. What you're doing is you're letting the people that you can't see have the most say.
Rob, what do you think?
I mean, look, we obviously have a pretty extreme difference of opinion on the immigration issue, and that's fine. We could flesh that out in the future. I'd be happy to do that. But I'll just say, it all comes down to incentives. Why don't the politicians listen to the Australian people? Well, if the numbers from Redbridge and others are correct, it's because they don't have to. There's no incentive. And once again, back to the immigration. I I don't know what else to say about that. Why don't they listen? Sorry?
It wasn't immigration that stopped making them listen. Who are they listening to instead of us? They're listening to the people who pay them the most money. And it's not immigrants paying them money.
Yeah, and a lot of these immigrants are foreign diasporas with money behind them. We know that. They've got their lobbyists. These are people who are extensions of their home nations living next door to you. They're not coming here to be Australian, and they have their representatives.
They are
as
suffering.
part of that.
Well, they're suffering under the same economic conditions as the rest of us. They're in the.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that they want to come here and act like a Western person to recreate the economic conditions that created the country they came to. Everybody wants to be here, that's correct. Yes, everybody wants to take part in the free money and the wonderful thing, but are they going to have the ideas, the behaviours, the philosophy, the understanding of what creates this into the future? Not necessarily.
Well, we didn't can I point out, we didn't become a republic in 1999 because an Englishman named Tony Abbott, English-born Tony Abbott, decided that it's far more important that we stay part of the Queen and not be a country that makes its own decisions. And no one questions that sort of thing when it's a white guy doing it. I think you can take this kind of stuff way too far because you're taking it off the subject of what is causing our economic pain.
Okay, I'll tell you what's causing our economic pain. I'll tell you what's causing our economic pain. Here we go. Robert Putnam, the largest social science study on diversity ever, sat on his findings because he's a lefty, and he didn't like what it said, showed that ethnic diversity decreases social trust and civic participation. It kills it. It absolutely bottoms it out. So here we go back into natural law. Social trust creates cooperation. Cooperation creates economic prosperity and wealth. So if you don't have any trust, you can't cooperate. The costs of cooperation skyrocket. You cannot create the wealth and efficiency. And that is where we came from as a nation. So the science says that ethnic diversity, unless it's controlled within parameters, I'm not totally against immigration or any individual person whatsoever, but runaway ethnic diversity kills social trust, which then kills the cooperation, which then kills the economics.
Have you seen, I got an interesting stat. Have you seen the profits that the big corporations in Australia are making while we're in a cost of living crisis?
Of course.
The insurance companies have never made bigger profits. The airlines have never made bigger profits. The banks have never made bigger profits.
Yes, because if you run a utility, if you sell something that everybody, even if they're poor, can afford, you love immigration. More warm bodies, more profit.
The ASX 200 directors, the directors of the ASX 200 are 93% Anglo-Celtic. They are the ones that are making out like bandits from our pain. The Lebanese,
that doesn't mean you ally with people who
Lebanese plumber who comes and fixes my pipes, and he's got as big a mortgage as I have, right? He is my ally against those guys.
I'd debate that very heavily. I'd debate that. So okay. Let's just pick something about certain communities pushing for hate crime legislation because it offends their collective, their group. One of the central tenets of West is that we are allowed to have adversarial debate so that we can find that cooperation which creates that wealth. A lot of these groups do not tolerate adversarialism when it comes to their sacred cows. That's very important to be a Western person. Do they tolerate adversarial debate with their sacred cows? We do more than most, not perfectly, but do they? So, I mean, yeah, you can get along with any individual person you want. It depends how far you want to dig. Depends how far you want to dig into their community and their leaders. How many of these people, the leaders of their communities, are running to the government to get special handouts for their particular community centres, to get advantages? How many of them support 18C, which basically says everybody except a Western man can sue because they're offended? How many? I think if you actually ask these sort of questions, you'd be shocked. But the point is, yes, a lot of our culture, our nation, our identity has been sold up the river. But these are the people that are pushing the immigration. They're using these people to bolster this managed decline of our nation. So what we are saying is there's so many of these problems, but kill the immigration and they're going to be laid bare. You have to deal with these things. But it's the immigration that pops these up.
Well, then I have, because I do accept the problem with foreign lobbies. I have to point out that you're putting all your hopes in a woman who wore a Israeli flag scarf in the chamber. given to her by lobbyists the actual people who gave it to her have now gone to Israel and become Israeli citizens. That's how little they cared about Australia when they were here.
Well, let me explain what we've done in regards to this. So October, no one came to an August 31 rally, but we had about 25 to 30,000 people show up saying Australia first, no more mass immigration. Then October 19, Malcolm Roberts came. Then Australia Day, Malcolm Roberts and Pauline came. That's when we dropped a coffin in front of her on stage and said no more foreign lobbying. Then we did Canberra. Malcolm, Pauline and Matt Canavan came, and we had Pauline say on stage, I am a senator for Australia, not Palestine, not Israel. So because we run in these events, we are actually getting her to say Australia first and only. You represent us. So once again, I'm just going to reiterate back to the viewers. We can put our hopes in a politician. I advise against that. You know, if you want to look for a hero who's going to save you and your children, look in the mirror. And the good news is with this lobby group, we've already had small wins of being able to force these people along the lines they should go along to keep them accountable, because that's what we've been saying. We don't put all our hopes in Pauline or One Nation. We think they're a winning horse at the moment and that should be backed. It's something new, it's something different, and that's not a small deal. But join the lobby group, come to the rallies, show up with your imaginary hypothetical pitchforks and say, you know, we'll give you a shot, but remember what your job is.
I disagree with some of your the policy emphasis, but I agree on the methodology. It's very, very important. That is the key. It's always been the key. What happened in Australia, in my view, is Australians get overwhelmed by the cost of living, etc. And it's not they become apathetic, but they kind of give up. They think the system is rigged and they don't do anything. And if they do that, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because they go, you won't change anything, and then they definitely don't. And they vacate the field and they leave it to these very influential interests. And that's why, it's constant engagement. Wherever you're coming from, it's constant engagement that's got to happen all the time.
And, you know, my job is to bring the music, so it's more fun than ever to do that. You know, because the whole point is family friendly. September 13 in Brisbane kicks off a national tour. There's literally a PA and a band on a truck where we play Aussie classics, sausage sizzle, wave your flags, bring your kids. We're having an Australian cultural revival. But the back end of this is, you know, we've got to keep these people accountable. So the principle is that diffusion of power keeps everyone accountable. So that's what the lobby group is important. This is the Australian People's Lobby Group, and I strongly recommend you support them.
Well, you've won me over because you've mentioned the sausage sizzle. It has to be better than Bunnings, otherwise I won't come back. I love my sausage and onion and sauce, tomato sauce and white bread. That's about it. But you are right, Rob. I do lament that Australia is losing its identity, and you just have to look around and you see very strong lobby groups that are doing all sorts of terrible things via government to this country, and I think. I would like to see a change of government very quickly. The only thing is, Michael, change of government, especially federally and even maybe in Victoria and New South Wales, what do we get? I think New South Wales will still roll over back to Labor. I'm not sure with Victoria because the LNP have had a disastrous record, as Robbie would attest to. Federally, we've still got to wait a bit, so they can still do a bunch of damage. Michael, as to all the guests, as we're going to wrap this up very shortly, Michael, if there was a federal election, let's say in the next month or two, which there won't be, Elbow won't do that, but if there was a federal election in the next 2 months, do you think Pauline would I can't see her winning government on her own, but I can see her having a fair input. Do you think that input would be a balance of power?
I think it's pretty likely, and you'd have to think the biggest part of the education is going to come in that political election cycle. So when you're heading into the voting booths, so that period up to there is where it's really going to, if you can't sell your position, you're screwed. So I think she'd only accelerate into that, but maybe she won't win government. If the coalition come on side though and they start saying the right thing too and everyone starts learning, and hopefully we can tip out a heap of shit MPs and get rid of a few crappy senators and just at least get someone in there that listens and represents us. Like when our town was taken, we asked every single politician in this country, we emailed everyone, rang their office of any relevance. She answered straight away, wrote us a letter, got the story going, then she came out here and held a rally. No one else was interested in doing anything like that to help us. We're the heartland of the LNP, so I think that she's going to do better than we probably think. But yeah, balance of power would be ideal, I guess, at minimum.
Rob, what do you see?
I don't like doing predictions, to be honest. I'm just going to say
a cup of tea.
No, I'm just going to say, you know what? The world is going to be what we make it. So if you want something, get out there. Like I've just said, I keep saying it. I think it's important and I think they should do it. Show up to the rallies, enjoy, participate in our culture, keep them accountable. You know, that's empowering to me, not sort of tea leaves.
I don't mind a cup of tea every now and then. And I'm very.
I like tea. I just don't like reading the future in it.
Oh, come on. A cup of scotches beforehand. You can do anything with those tea leaves.
Okay. I think she's going to do well. I think she's going to do well. I don't know if she's going to take government, but I think she's going to be a big influence. And I think that regardless of what happens, the Australian people got to step up and influence our government through her and influence her through things like the Oz Lobby.
And Robbie Barwick, Victorian election not far away. I think, it's terrible, I think that Pauline will not do very well at all. One of the reasons is I think that she just recently but got her troops organised to go to that election in that state. I think people will get to the polls, and there'll be a great number, by the way, that will vote for her. But I think they'll get to the polling booth and they'll go, "Oh, I can't really do that," and they'll go back to what they voted for before. What do you think?
Well, it partly depends on what Labor at the state level and federally actually prepared to do in the face of the one nation threat, and if are they going to be prepared to change or die? Because if it actually gets serious, they might be able to win some votes back. But so it depends on what they're prepared to do, and it also depends on if the people are prepared to believe them or not, because they are the same tired animal. Victoria is certainly going to be the hardest for her, but I suspect she'll help the Liberals win this election, and there'll be a bunch of seats, especially in the upper house, that she'll get. And then that'll be then she'll. The thing there is she'll get identified with the outcome of the Liberal government that she's supported in, and so I hope they're prepared for that. Federally, it's not quite so clear to me because it's 18 months more or 20 months away, and a lot can happen in that time. So we'll see.
We will see indeed. Tomorrow we're going to talk to in the UK. We're talking about Nigel, and I think Nigel truly. My own humble opinion, and so far I'm right, he will not get into power, and don't believe the hoo-ha beforehand. But they've got a long time to go. They've got a few more years to go yet, so who knows. Michael Offerdale, Robert McMullen and Robbie Barwick, I thank you very, very much for your time. I appreciate it. Nice and vibrant, if you like to do. As for the tea leaves, I think I'll stick to my Scotch, Rob. Much nicer, and there are no leaves in there to distract.
What's your favourite?
I like the. I don't mind a Shivers as just as a bit of a coughing one. I do like my. What's the other one? There's a Scottish one. If I can, it's about $110 a bottle, so I always go to the cheaper one. But there's some nice ones out there. But I don't mind the Shivers, and it's pretty basic, but it's a nice one with one ice block and sit in front of the TV and mumble.
Yep.
If I want to treat myself, it's anything Ardbeg.
Yes. Lembit Opik, who used to work for us, introduced me to that one. But I had another one. I've forgotten what it's called. Anyway, it's about $109 a bottle, and that's way out of my price range. Not Robbie's.
Just drink it slower.
Oh no. Michael, what's your favourite Scotch?
Scotch. Yeah, no one really drinks that out this way.
Bundy.
No.
She's pretty basic out here. Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Okay, there you are, Rob Bundy. Robbie, anything can get his hands on. Me, I'll just quaff my Shivers Regal. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Need to do this more often. It's been fantastic, and appreciate it very much. This is we're called the Country Telegraph. We're now the Pulse, thepulse.today. Tomorrow we're doing the same, 2 hours between 4 and 6, and then We'll do the protagonists. We'll talk about Nigel Farage tomorrow. And next week, we extend the programming. It will kick off, I would think, around about probably 3 o'clock. And it'll go through till about 8 or 9. And we'll extend and extend and extend until I drop dead. But it's going to be some great programming, and it's what you all deserve. We are not bought by anyone. We have no agenda. We just want to tell the story as it is, tell it as it is. And unfortunately, we do have some who don't like that. And really, we don't care. We just don't care. We just want to tell the story. Thank you so much. I will catch you tomorrow. Same time, same phone booth. This has been The Protagonist, and this is The Pulse.
We don't rock, we talk. Today's News Talk, The Pulse.